Lord of Mystery, The Return of the Stars Chapter 401–420. After experiencing many things that happened some time ago, they more or less realized that there was something wrong with the gods they believed in. This was also the reason why His Holiness the Pope chose to leave the church. Of course, it is not ruled out that he acted secretly according to the oracle. In the days without His Holiness the Pope, the interior of the church did not look much different from usual, but it gave people a bit of a weird feeling. At that time, they simply thought that there were too many things recently, people's hearts were floating, and there was no backbone of His Holiness the Pope to stabilize the scene, so this phenomenon occurred. Unexpectedly, the interior of the entire Eternal Sun Church was almost hollowed out. The evil god who dared to compete with the Eternal Sun had secretly extended his tentacles here. More importantly, God did not give them the revelation they should have. Does this mean that their God is no longer able to take care of what happened here? The 4 surviving bishops had complex expressions and different thoughts, and there were shrill screams in their ears. The stake of His Holiness the Pope is different from the ordinary stake. It will not burn the sinners to death easily, but will burn and roast everywhere from the outside to the inside, from the body to the soul. Cleansing the soul and cleansing the sins are not empty words for His Holiness the Pope. The 2 bishops who betrayed their faith did not withstand the stake for too long. After only 5 minutes, the shrill screams from their throats gradually became inaudible. Their bodies were completely burned clean, and their spirits turned into a wisp of light smoke in the golden flames. When everything was over, Ross Hurley did not put away the stake, but looked at the other 4 bishops. The more firm your faith in God is, the less likely you will be bewitched. Only those with unclean minds will be tempted to fall. They are your precedents. I hope I don't have to send you to the stake in the future. Praise the sun. The 4 bishops bent down and said loudly at the same time facing the statue. The unclean seeds have begun to spread. Find them and send them to the stake one by one. This is the best loyalty to the gods. Ross Hurley then taught them how to distinguish the pagans with polluted beliefs within the church. They believe in the new sun, not the eternal scorching sun. All they need to do is bring them to the statue, drink the holy water polluted by baptism, and then chant the church's classic psalms to praise the sun. Any believers with impure beliefs will appear one by one in front of God. After the 4 bishops left, Ross Hurley put away the stake and sighed heavily. The ultimate is only a temporary solution. Pollution is permanent. No matter how pure the faith is, it will be completely swallowed up sooner or later under the infection of the accumulated days. And doing this on a large scale will also make the believers uneasy, which will give the evil god an opportunity to take advantage of it. But it cannot be left alone, otherwise the rot will corrode the heart, and cutting flesh is always better than cutting bones. If you want to solve this problem from the root, that is the business of the gods. What he can do is to ease the process as much as possible. At least before the gods fall, their temples will still shine brightly. Ross Hurley was silent in the temple for a long time, until he felt something in his heart, and then he left the temple. On the outskirts of the capital Trier, Bernadette, who had not yet entered the gate of Trier, sat in a carriage and glanced at Catalia, who was sitting quietly beside her. You find a place to stay first, I will find you again when I have time. Where are you going? Before Catalia finished speaking, Bernadette's figure had disappeared. Looking at the empty seat, Catalia sighed silently, pulled open the curtain, and the capital Trier was already in sight. The carriage drove into Trier unimpeded, and Catalia got off and walked along the street, feeling the unfamiliar scenery of her hometown while looking for a suitable residence on the street. According to her original idea, she wanted to buy a suitable villa as the queen's place to stay, but now she is alone, it is more appropriate to live in a hotel temporarily. Finally, she found a hotel with the best decoration style and a particularly grand appearance to live in. She deliberately booked only one room so as not to miss the opportunity to meet the queen. When she followed the service staff to the outside of her room, the door of the room opposite opened, and a young couple walked out. The man had dazzling blonde hair, and his clothes and temperament made it obvious that he was from an aristocratic family, but he didn't look like someone from Intis. The girl, wearing a black court dress that was out of tune with the style of Intis, and a small black soft hat, looked delicate and beautiful. A very well-matched young couple. Catalia just took a quick look, then retracted her gaze, walked into her room, and closed the door. I vaguely heard a few words of conversation from the young couple outside. It's really interesting. What do you mean? It means something very interesting. Catalia frowned slightly. What kind of conversation was this? It made people look confused. People who are good at making riddles are annoying. They always like to be mysterious and can't speak a complete sentence. She didn't think too much. She came to the window sill, opened the window, leaned forward slightly, and looked at this city with a very different style. The customs and habits of Intis are different from those of other countries, and the buildings here are also very different. It is said that when Emperor Roussel was alive, he once promoted national reforms in one fell swoop. But with his sudden death in the White Maple Palace, the later Sorin family made every effort to revise the various laws and traces of existence left by Emperor Roussel. This back and forth led to the polarization of the architectural style of Intis. In addition, the people of Intis are free and have strong personalities, so they do not have a unified style like other countries. Catalia looked at the distance for a while, then lowered her head and looked down at the street. The young couple who had just passed by her were strolling on the street. The girl was walking into a clothing store to choose clothes, and the man stayed in a cafe outside the clothing store, ordered a cup of coffee and waited. I don't know if it was her illusion, the man seemed to be looking at her, but when she looked over, the man was slowly sipping the fragrant coffee. She looked a few more times, and after confirming that she was seeing wrong, she moved her eyes away and looked at a judgment square in the distance. Intis has always had a tradition of executing criminals in front of ordinary people. But the scene of today's execution was a bit strange. The 8 prisoners were all believers of the Eternal Sun Church, and they were wearing white robes issued by the Eternal Sun Church. And they were tried and executed for blasphemy. The firewood pile began to burn, and the raging flames quickly devoured the Eternal Sun Church believers who committed sins. At night, Catalia was in the room and had not waited for Bernadette, but heard new movements across the door. She was not a person who liked to eavesdrop on other people's privacy, but the movements and voices across the door were very loud. After listening for a while, Catalia understood what was going on. Tonight she happened to meet a patrol team coming to this hotel to check for suspicious people. According to the description of the 2 soldiers, they were looking for a priest who escaped from the church. Dong dong. Catalia's door was also knocked, so she had to open the door and go out to cooperate with the investigation and questioning. If you encounter anyone suspicious, remember to report the news. If the news is true, you will receive a considerable reward. The 2 patrol soldiers continued to knock on other rooms, looking for people one by one according to a portrait on hand. It seems that there is a serious problem inside the Eternal Sun Church. It's a coincidence that you came. The man suddenly spoke. Your luck has always been good. The delicate girl spoke calmly. I will take this as a compliment to me, the man said, turning to look at Catalia. Madam, are you new to Intis for tourism? Yes. Catalia nodded lightly, without the desire to communicate, and closed the door. After a brief episode, everything returned to calm. I thought tonight would pass like this, but in the middle of the night, Catalia, who was lying in bed and unable to fall asleep, suddenly sensed the breath of the queen and got up from the bed. But what surprised her was that the queen's breath was emitted from the house opposite. Could the queen have walked into the wrong room? After a slight hesitation, she pushed open the door and walked to the door of the opposite room. Looking up, the room was brightly lit, and 3 figures were faintly reflected. The most familiar figure was the queen she had been waiting for, and the other 2 figures should be the young couple. The queen knew them? They were discussing something. Shouldn't I disturb them at this time? So as not to make the queen feel that she was immature, too clingy, and had not grown up. When Catalia was very emotional, the queen's voice came from the room. Do you want to stay outside the door until dawn? Catalia did not hesitate anymore, pushed open the door that was not closed tightly and walked in, then walked silently behind Bernadette and stood there, without saying anything but just glanced at the young couple with curiosity. You should have met today, right? Bernadette said to Catalia again. Asta and Sharon, they are from Backland in Lowen, and they are my friends. Catalia, the queen's follower. Catalia made a brief introduction. Hastur naturally recognized this Catalya, the admiral of the star who roamed the sea, Huang Jiajia, also known as Xingjiang. Late at night, 3 people sat down in the room, only Catalya insisted on standing behind Bernadette. I just happened to come here to relax and happened to encounter the matter of the Eternal Sun Church. It doesn't matter whether it's a coincidence or an accident. What matters is that you came and things happened. Bernadette looked at Asta meaningfully. In the mysterious world, the symbolic meaning is far greater than the actual meaning. Asta did not refute this sentence, but acquiesced. Is Trier now more chaotic because of his arrival, or is the chaotic situation here attracting his arrival? The symbolic meaning he possesses is far greater than Bernadette's guess. If I don't come, Trier will still experience a chaos, but the scale of this chaos will be relatively small. And my arrival will rapidly expand the scale of this chaos, from a small disturbance to a major disaster. You can become a believer of the stars, so you must have unknown characteristics, or secrets. Bernadette seemed to see through something. I have no intention of prying into your privacy. I am just curious about how much change your arrival will bring here. Will you be the spark that happens to ignite the explosive barrel, or will you be a ball of flames yourself? Asta pretended to be mysterious and smiled. Maybe I am a sun. Sun? There are many believers of the eternal sun in this city, and they often call themselves the incarnation of the sun? You misunderstood. This is how someone I met last night described me. Well, this is a joke. Bernadette joked. Is he from the Eternal Sun Church? They always like to go to great lengths to develop believers. His name is Ross Hurley. Asta did not hide this matter. He also wanted to get some information about this person from Bernadette. Hearing this name, Bernadette became serious. She once met a young man from the Eternal Sun Church in the southern continent. That person called himself Ross Hurley. He also said that if I join the Eternal Sun Church, I will have a chance to become the Pope in the future. What a heartwarming statement. Maybe this is not a joke. Bernadette's smile faded, but she didn't say much to Hastur. She was not familiar with this person, but she knew that he was not simple. As the night deepened, they chatted for a few more sentences. Bernadette followed Catalya back to the opposite room. Before leaving, she deliberately whispered in Sharon's ear, I didn't expect that little Sharon was still kidnapped. Little Sharon? Catalya's ears were sharp, and she immediately caught this key name of pampering. Her calm eyes changed, and she stared at Sharon with complex eyes, with envy, curiosity, loss, and vigilance. The little hand that naturally dropped down, unconsciously pinched the corner of the clothes, and couldn't help but want to shout in her heart. I also want this exclusive name of pampering. Sharon also keenly noticed Catalya's unusual look, but she didn't explain anything, nor did she pay attention to Bernadette's jokes. She was used to Bernadette's style of being serious and joking at times. After Bernadette left the room, Catalya, who was walking behind, looked back at Sharon, wanting to ask something, but in the end she just raised her chin slightly and left with a light of unwillingness in her eyes. Asta saw Catalya's little expression and found it very interesting. As the saying goes, 3 women make a play. Sharon, Bernadette, and Catalya can barely make up a script of, I was here first. Catalya is the victim who can't get the love she wants. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about a play. The Church of the Eternal Sun? No, it's about you. Sharon didn't ask any more questions. Her intuition told her that what Asta was thinking about was not healthy. The next day, Asta was going to lie in bed and rest for a while to make up for the sleepiness of not sleeping well the night before. But Catalya, who lived in the opposite room, knocked on the door early in the morning. Sharon hid in the mirror and had no intention of opening the door. Asta could only get up, tidy up his appearance a little, and then open the door. Catalya, who was a little aggrieved at first, changed her expression instantly after Hastur opened the door, and said indifferently, the Queen asked me to follow you in the next few days. Action? Hastur was surprised, then smiled and said, I am here for vacation, and I don't have any other arrangements for the time being. I only obey the Queen's orders. Catalya walked into the room and sat on the stool in the middle of the room naturally. Her eyes swept around and then fell on the mirror on the table. Is there something? Sharon's figure gradually emerged from the mirror. Ghost. Astrologer. The two of them revealed each other's extraordinary sequence. One was not sure, and the other was very confident. Catalya's eyes changed slightly, and there was more vigilance in her eyes. Someone from the Rose School? Is there something? Sharon asked again. Catalya was silent for a while, then shook her head and looked away, turning to look at Hasta, who was waiting to watch the show. You guys continue, I'll go out and get you some breakfast. Asta left the room consciously, leaving Catalya and Sharon alone. Silent. After a while, Catalya took the initiative to ask, "What is your relationship with the Queen?" "Partners." Just like that, Catalya's tone was more relaxed and happy. In the mirror, Sharon said calmly, "She always responds to my requests." Catalya's bright eyes dimmed instantly. "She and I are just ordinary people." "Really?" Catalya's dim eyes brightened again, making Sharon dazzled. When Hester came back with 2 breakfasts, Catalya's head was on the table, whispering something to Sharon in the mirror. Noticing Hester's arrival, Catalya immediately sat up straight and returned to a calm and indifferent look. Tisk, she changed her face so quickly. Hester put the breakfast on the table, looked at Sharon in the mirror, and found that she was in a good mood, with a faint smile in her eyes. Run, keep running, don't get caught, otherwise you will be burned to death on the stake." Deep in the intricate alley, Ulrich, wrapped in a black robe, was running in a hurry. When he saw a patrol passing by, he glanced around and hurriedly hid his body in an empty trash can. The stench was so bad that even rats were reluctant to stay for a long time. When the patrol soldiers passed by, they also quickened their pace and spit at the trash can. After the footsteps completely disappeared, Ulrich came out of the trash can with one hand covering his nose. He carefully observed the surroundings and ran a distance before breathing in fresh air. He ran to the riverside, dived in, and then dived down, drifting down the river in the city. In a place where it was difficult to be discovered, an air pipe allowed him to breathe air in the water. When he drifted to the downstream area where the water flow was gentle, he slowly raised his head from the water, confirmed that there were no suspicious people around, and then he climbed out of the water, and then hid in the grove along the river, leaning against the tree trunk, breathing heavily to restore his strength. He was very glad that he did not choose the sun path at the beginning, but chose the fortune teller path, and was lucky enough to be promoted to a sequence 7 magician. Otherwise, he would never have been able to leave the Eternal Sun Church alive. So many people in the church, including the bishop, were sent to the stake. Fortunately, he had divined in advance that his life would be in danger, so he made some preparations and kept a careful eye, which gave him the opportunity to escape here. "My bishop, you can die, why do you drag me down with you?" Ulrich said as he reached out and touched himself, until he felt a hard round object in his jacket pocket, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this thing was not lost, otherwise he would have defected from the Eternal Sun Church in vain. After a short rest of 20 minutes, Ulrich stood up with one hand on the tree trunk, and took out a miniature astrolabe from his arms with the other hand, and guided himself to the right way forward through divination. He gradually passed through the grove, and through the gaps between the trees, he could already see the buildings outside. He was still in Trier, just escaping from a dangerous area to a relatively safe place. After observing for a while, he retreated back to the grove and hid there again, hoping to find a suitable way out for himself through divination after he fully recovered. In the dead of night, Ulrich came out of the grove, flexibly avoided the inhabited areas, and headed towards the safe direction divined. When he met patrol soldiers, he hid in the dark shadows, spread out his black robe, and raised his hands horizontally in front of himself, successfully blending into the darkness and deceiving the patrol soldiers' search. This kind of magic can only work at night. During the day, it is easy to be seen through and unable to hide smoothly. Hiding around and following the guidance of divination, he successfully avoided the patrol soldiers and the people of the Eternal Sun Church. Why is it suddenly not working? Ulrich, who originally wanted to leave Trier under the cover of night, looked at his divination with horror. The pointer on the divination astrolabe suddenly stopped, as if it was disturbed by various forces. For a fortune teller, it is normal for the fortune-telling horoscope to be abnormal, and there are many possible reasons. For example, there are powerful beings with higher status than oneself nearby. They will cover up their secrets and are not easy to be discovered. They will also interfere with the fortune teller who wants to divine the information here, making the divination results lose authenticity. It can also be a powerful seal. It may also be a problem with the divination sentence. Divination is not omnipotent and cannot solve all problems. When your ability is not enough to support you to obtain the corresponding secrets, forcing divination will only bring disaster to yourself. Ulrich stopped and thought carefully. He thought that there should be a powerful extraordinary person far superior to himself in the nearby area, which caused the divination to be distorted and chaotic. The result of the previous divination was to let me move in this direction. Is it a reminder for me to seek the help of this powerful extraordinary person? In the end, Ulrich rejected this idea. If he rashly disturbed a powerful extraordinary person, he might not even know how to die. There were still soldiers and members of the Church of the Eternal Sun patrolling the streets late at night. Faced with this situation, he could only find a safe place to hide first. Ulrich carefully looked around, then crouched and carefully hid in a warehouse where kitchen ingredients were stored. On the second floor of the hotel, Asta, who was enjoying the breeze by the window and feeling the charm of Intis, naturally noticed the sneaky figure not far away. He looked like a thief or a wanted criminal. According to what happened recently, the possibility of a wanted criminal was greater. But he had no intention of getting involved now. He just looked at it for a few times, then retracted his gaze and looked at the empty room. Since Catalya and Sharon chatted today, the relationship between the two seemed to be much better. In the evening, Catalya took Sharon out to play, and when it was time to rest, she invited Sharon to her room, leaving Asta alone in the room. It seems that the Rose School led by the evil god Seer has the upper hand in the confrontation with the Eternal Sun Church this time. With his luck, this is really not a simple matter. Asta stopped to observe for a while, closed the doors and windows, lay on the bed, and entered the Hall of Stars. He was very skilled in finding the star where the Mother Tree of Desire was located, and saw the evil god Sia, who had merged into the tree roots and only revealed a face. Surprisingly, the evil gods Sia and the Rose School have not taken any action recently. Is there a problem within the Church of the Eternal Sun? Could it be that the Eternal Sun is about to fall? Hastur thought about it and looked at the star where the Superstar Lord was located. As usual, there was nothing unusual. Then he looked at the high-dimensional overlooker. Well, his incarnation was still playing hide and seek with Aemon in the Forsaken Land of God. Since the last star sacrifice, when Amon's two clones were caught by the high-dimensional overlooker, they seemed to have noticed something wrong and disappeared without a trace. Unfortunately, he underestimated the patience of the high-dimensional overlooker. He has been guarding the Forsaken Land of God all this time and blocking the gate for Aemon to leave the Forsaken Land of God. At this moment, the encirclement is slowly tightening, trying to catch Aemon, who is hiding everywhere. Hastur looked away after a while. With their authority, ability, scheming and wisdom, this game of hide and seek would be enough for them to play for several months. The next morning, Bernadette had not returned yet, but the staff of the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun came. They were also here to look for the wanted criminal. They said that someone had seen suspicious people appearing here, so they were asked to pay attention to them and contact the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun directly if they had any news. There were obviously more patrolmen on the streets, and they searched almost every house. Hastur still chose to watch and led Catalya and Sharon to visit many of Intis's special attractions. Unfortunately, although the White Maple Palace had been abandoned, it was not open to the public. There were still people guarding it, probably waiting for Bernadette to fall into the trap. Do you want to go in? Catalya saw that Hastur was very interested in the White Maple Palace. I am really interested. Emperor Rissel is a person worth studying. Standing outside the White Maple Palace, Hastur was slightly lost in thought as he looked at this extremely prestigious building. After all, Rissel is a fellow traveler, and it is always sad to come to the place where he fell. However, when I think of Rissel's debauchery with some noble ladies and even witches in the White Maple Palace, this sympathy disappears instantly. You can try it at night. I don't have the habit of looking for trouble. I can act with you. There was a glimmer in Catalya's eyes. It is obvious that she is thinking of helping Bernadette explore the White Maple Palace. Asta smiled and declined her proposal. If he really wanted to enter the White Maple Palace, it would be easier for him to act alone. It would be easier to be discovered if he brought Catalya with him. In the afternoon, Asta took time to visit the investment market of Intis. He had no idea of investing, but just wanted to see how far Intis's current scientific research has progressed through here. Among them, the project that impressed him the most was that someone proposed to develop a product similar to an internal combustion engine, and there was already a simple model, which was promising in the future. If this project appeared in Lowen, he would not mind investing some money or even giving some small suggestions. Around 8 o'clock in the evening, there was a noisy sound on the street. Hasta Campbell and Sharon stood at the window of the second-floor room of the hotel, overlooking the movement there. After the soldiers and the members of the Church of the Eternal Sun had conducted a thorough search, the wanted criminal had exposed his whereabouts, but at the critical moment he jumped into the river in the city and escaped. Soldiers and members of the Church of the Eternal Sun were holding torches and searching along both sides of the river. Catalya suggested, "This is a good opportunity." "I'm not interested." Hasta smiled and said, "Of course, I won't interfere with your actions. I don't believe you are really here for tourism." Catalya left the hotel after saying that, and obviously went to participate in this matter. Sharon asked calmly, "Are you really not interested? With her here, I don't need to do it myself. I just need to stay in the room and wait for the result." Asta looked at Sharon beside him and asked curiously, "Didn't you go to buy new clothes with Catalya?" "I don't like it. Maybe it will have a different effect if you dress yourself differently from time to time." "Are you looking forward to it?" Sharon looked directly at Asta, as if she could see his little thoughts. "A little." Asta nodded honestly. He was really looking forward to Sharon's modern female professional attire. The collision of classic and modern should have a different kind of beauty. Sharon did not respond to Asta's expectant eyes, but returned to the mirror expressionlessly. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, Asta's door was knocked. Asta had no choice but to get up and open the door. Outside the door, in addition to Catalya, there was a man in a black robe, wet all over, and faintly smelled the sour smell of a trash can. "Can't you go to your own room?" Asta sighed. Catalya met Asta's gaze and said seriously, "I hate the stench." "Don't I hate this smell?" Asta looked at Catalya with a serious face in silence. She knew she was in the wrong and looked away, staring at the mirror on the table, pretending not to see Asta's gaze. Until Asta retracted his gaze from her, she turned her eyes back and briefly described what happened tonight. After Catalya left the hotel, she followed the searchers silently until they were about to find someone, then she took the lead and brought the person out of the encirclement. In this process, she was lucky and did not encounter any other extra things. "I saved you tonight, you should introduce yourself well." Ulrich, who was disliked by the sour smell and looked aggrieved, heard Catalya's words and quickly told her identity and the reason for being wanted like pouring beans. Asta listened silently, then glanced at Ulrich's jacket pocket, pointed a finger and said, "You haven't introduced what's in your jacket pocket yet." "Ah." Ulrich subconsciously covered his jacket pocket with his hand, took a few steps back, and stopped until he touched the door frame. He said in disbelief, "How do you know the thing is on me? If you were really just an ordinary priest, the Eternal Sun Church will never arrest you so ostentatiously. Excluding the possibility that you are the Pope's illegitimate child, it is more likely that you escaped with important things." Ulrich looked at Asta with admiration. "You are really amazing. You can guess the general situation after only meeting me once. Because the plots in most books are like this, otherwise how can the story continue?" Asta complained in his heart. "I can tell you the truth, and even give you the things." Ulrich reached out and carefully took out the so-called treasure from his jacket pocket, and then spread it in the palm of his hand. "A gray, round stone? I have only one condition. You must send me out of Trier safely." Ulrich quickly closed his palms again to block Hasta and Catalya's gazes. "I will only give this thing to you." Ulrich spread the round stone in front of Catalya again, motioning her to take it away. Catalya was silent for a while. She really disliked the dirt and smell. "Sorry, I'll put it on the table." Ulrich, who realized this, blushed, took a few steps forward, and put the round stone on the table, very close to the mirror. When his hand left, the stone that had been placed there silently turned a few times, pulling a long distance away from the mirror on the table. Ulrich was stunned, and then said in shock, "Damn it, it has never been so magical in my hands." Well, it is indeed amazing. Even Sharon, who was hiding in the mirror, disliked the dirty smell of the stone, so she couldn't help but kick it away. Hasta resisted the urge to laugh and said with a serious face, "This proves that we are the best destination for this thing." Catalya on the side looked away silently, and she also wanted to laugh a little. Ulrich was stunned for a moment and sighed, "Maybe. Now, can you tell me its origin and use?" Upon hearing the question, Ulrich glanced at Catalya uneasily and whispered, "After I finish speaking, you must ensure that I am safely sent away from here." "Well, here's the deal." Seeing Catalya nodding, Ulrich breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the stone on the table and said with complicated eyes, "I am a priest next to Bishop Deli. We have a very good relationship, so when he had a premonition when he was about to die, he entrusted this thing to me. When he was leaving, he told me that this thing was the Eye of God." Having said this, Ulrich shuddered subconsciously, with a bit of panic in his eyes. God's eyes, these are such rebellious words. I was completely frightened at the time. I could only vaguely hear him muttering something to himself. The gods are about to fall, and the new sun is about to rise, but where is the new sun? Is it him? Not him? These are incomprehensible words. The day after he handed the things to me, he was arrested by the Eternal Sun Church for blasphemy, and then burned on the stake. To be honest, it is a normal sentence to be accused of blasphemy based on his shocking remarks, but I didn't expect that even I would be listed as a blasphemer and a wanted criminal. In order to protect myself, I had no choice but to run away. When they found me today, I thought I was going to be burned at the stake. But this lady saved me. Ulrich's eyes flashed as he stared at Catalya's beautiful face and said in a pious tone, "At that time, I thought you were the angel sent by God to save me." "I'm not." Catalya directly interrupted Ulrich's upcoming fantasy. I know, I'm just a metaphor." Ulrich blushed and lowered his head, not daring to look at Catalya. Catalya was not interested in paying attention to his little thoughts and looked to Hasta to ask for his opinion. Asta smiled and said, "How about returning it directly to the Eternal Sun Church?" "This joke is not funny." Catalya thought for a moment. "We'll leave this thing to you for safekeeping first. It's late at night. I'll deal with it tomorrow." "It makes sense, I also want to rest first." Before Hasta finished speaking, Catalya took away the mirror on the table, returned to her room, and closed the door thoughtfully, leaving only Hasta and Ulrich in the room looking at each other. "Hoshi-chan, you are going too far now. You obviously rescued this person, but you threw all the troubles on me? Is there anyone who does things like this? Moreover, why should you take Sharon away with you if you want to go back to your room?" Hasta opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything, he just sighed imperceptibly. It was probably that Catalya simply didn't believe that this seemingly inconspicuous round stone could be the eye of the eternal blazing sun. He thought Ulrich was lying and there was no value in further investigation, so he left so simply. But Hasta had a hunch that what Father Ulrich said was true. This round stone was really the eye of the eternal blazing sun that fell into the world. It should be that when he helped the superstar lord bombard his kingdom of God a few times before, eternal fierce sun was accidentally injured, causing one of his eyes to fall from the kingdom of God. As for why the eyes of the eternal burning sun turned into stone, and there seems to be nothing abnormal on the surface, Hasta has no idea. But he understood that this thing was a hot potato now. Not only does the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun want to bring back the divine object, but the egg dominated by the superstar also needs the nutrients in this eye. There was another possibility that worried him the most. Unless the eternal fierce sun was seriously injured to the point of death, why would he let his eyes fall into the world? Is there any calculation in this? The eternal fierce sun was once one of the gods that participated in the meal of the ancient sun god, and he was definitely an old yin. His every move may contain hidden meanings. And this thing fell into his hands so easily. I haven't even gone out recently, and I have deliberately avoided it to avoid getting involved. Haha, this thing is definitely not a chance, but a source of turmoil. Hasta already has a rough idea in his mind about the arrangement of this eternal blazing sun eye. He put away all his distracting thoughts and looked at Ulrich, who was standing aside with a look of embarrassment on his face. Where does that smell come from? I once hid in a trash can to avoid patrolling soldiers. Ulrich answered honestly. Haster's eyelids twitched slightly, and he pointed to the corner of the wall. You can go there and spend the night first. I will find a way to send you out of the capital trier tomorrow. Thank you. Ulrich muttered his lips a few times, then obediently walked to the corner and huddled up. Although this place wasn't that great, it was much better than sleeping outdoors in the towering sky. Give. Haster opened the closet and threw a spare quilt from the hotel to Ulrich. Before he could say anything, he put out the lights and went to bed to rest. In the basement of a luxurious villa in the West District, the god Sia, who was sleeping in the tree roots, sensed the call from the mother goddess. He stood up from the tree roots, with the sticky green juice from the tree roots still flowing on his body. He looked up at the black tree in front of him. In the middle of the tree trunk, a blurry face struggled to emerge from the tree little by little. The surrounding air seemed to solidify at this moment, and the breath of darkness and desire began to crawl out of the darkness. The lush tree crown is his hair, the thick and powerful branches are his body, and the winding and twisting tree roots are his legs. The space in the basement is too small, far less than that on the island, which makes it impossible for the mother goddess's limbs to extend freely, and can only expand deeper underground through the tree roots. Find this thing. A simple oracle was said intermittently, and at the same time, the specific shape of something appeared in the mind of the god Sia. A gray, round stone. It is suspected to be related to the eternal blazing sun, which will be of great benefit to the new sun that is still brewing at the top of the tree canopy. I will obey the oracle. The evil god Sia bowed his head to receive the oracle. The blurred face that was struggling to show up disappeared into the tree again, and everything around him returned to normal. Alas! The evil god Sia stood quietly for a while, then sighed. He felt that he had bad luck recently, and even the mother goddess had talked about this problem. Now that he received this task, he was really not sure to complete it. Trier is the capital of Intis, where the power of the eternal blazing sun is the strongest, followed by the god of steam and machinery. Although this place is not as terrible as Backland, once the eternal blazing sun notices an abnormal phenomenon, it is very likely to hold a god's descent. The god of steam and machinery does not need to worry too much, because he usually does not descend, and the most powerful one under his command is only a sequence 2 angel. Even if he holds a powerful seal in his hand, he is not worried. Only the descent of God can really threaten him. After pondering for a long time, the evil god Sia walked out of the basement and ordered the members of the Rose School of Indulgence to go out and investigate, and asked them to keep an eye on the situation of the Eternal Sun Church at any time. And he himself will also act in secret. Not long after coming out, he vaguely sensed Bernadette's breath. He had targeted Bernadette many times in Backland and was very familiar with her breath. A believer of the stars, the evil god Sia had no intention of targeting Bernadette again. Although the mother goddess did not say it, their relationship with the stars was not that of an enemy. After knowing that Bernadette was a believer of the stars, the mother goddess also asked him to give up this task. Well, the Pope of the Eternal Sun Church has also returned. It seems that the Eternal Sun Church has indeed encountered an accident recently. The evil god Sia continued to hide in the dark and observe everything. In the absence of the true god, he was not afraid of anyone in Trier. It was dawn, the darkness dissipated, but the morning air still had a little chill from last night. Asta woke up and glanced at the room. He found Ulrich sleeping soundly in the corner, drooling from the corner of his mouth, leaving a pool of saliva on the new quilt. Well, I have to pay for another quilt later. Asta did not disturb Ulrich, who was sleeping soundly. He got up, washed up, walked out of the room, and knocked on the door of Catalia across the street. After a while, the door opened. It was Catalia who opened the door. When she walked into the room, Sharon had come out of the mirror and was sitting in front of an exquisite dressing mirror. She was wearing a new set of clothes. Although it was still a slightly conservative and classical Gothic outfit, the style was obviously the style of Intis. It should be one of the new clothes Sharon bought some time ago. Asta glanced at Sharon with a resentful look.
He had asked Sharon to try it on, but was ruthlessly rejected.
Catalia has only known her for a few days, and I was obviously here first.
Hey, why does this situation seem a little familiar?
Do you want to return that thing to the Eternal Sun Church? Catalia looked at Hasta with a bad look. Although she didn't believe that thing would be the Eye of God, she had no good feelings towards the Eternal Sun Church. She would rather throw that thing to a dog than send it back.
At the beginning, it was the Eternal Sun Church and the Sauron family that led to the fall of Emperor Rizal in the White Maple Palace. This major event has been proven by history. If it weren't for the support of the Eternal Sun Church, the Sauron family alone would not be able to assassinate Emperor Rizal. The Gustav family would not be persecuted by the Sauron family, and the queen would not be just a mysterious queen who roamed the sea.
She should be the most noble princess in the entire Intis Republic. Princess. Well, this thing contains ominous things. Leaving it in our hands will only bring disaster.
I don't agree, Catalia directly refused with a cold face, leaving no room for negotiation on this matter. Asta was not in a hurry. He poured himself a cup of hot tea and took a sip before saying, "What do you want to do with it?" "Throw it to the dog. That's a good idea." Asta's eyes lit up slightly. "Let's do it." Throwing the Eternal Sun's eye to a dog, what an interesting thing it would be.
If the Eternal Sun happens to observe something through this eye, it would be even more interesting.
He will witness his eyes being swallowed by a dog.
Catalia was obviously stunned for a moment. Are you serious? Don't you think your proposal is good? Asta blinked and said, the holy relic that the Eternal Sun Church has been pursuing so hard was fed to a dog just like that. What an exciting blasphemy.
Catalia's pupils widened slightly, and finally looked at Asta with a complicated look. "You are crazier and bolder than I thought."
"Ms. Catalia, this is your proposal." Catalia didn't argue anymore. What she said just now was just angry words, but Asta really intended to do this.
Hearing their conversation, even Sharon, who had never been interested in these things, looked over, with confusion in her eyes.
She knew that Hasta must have his own considerations for choosing to do this. It was too crazy to feed a suspected god's eye to a dog. First, find a suitable dog on the street, and then notify the members of the Eternal Sun Church to come and witness this historic moment.
"You go," Catalia said with an attitude that if you propose something, you should do it. "I won't go. Let Ulrich go. He is already a blasphemer in the eyes of the Eternal Sun Church. It's not surprising that he does something ridiculous." Hasta didn't want to take the risk of gambling on whether the Eternal Sun would descend from the sky because of this matter. Since the things were brought by Ulrich, he should be the one to finish the matter. "Well, this makes sense. Me? I won't go." Ulrich, who had just woken up and was still holding a quilt in his hands, turned pale when he heard Asta's arrangement. He shook his head desperately and cried, "It will kill people. They will definitely hang me on the stake for 3 days and 3 nights. With your current crime of blasphemy, you will be put on the stake if you are caught, right?" Asta squatted down and persuaded him. But haven't I been caught yet?" Ulrich's face changed slightly, and soon he muttered loudly again. "You promised to send me out of Trier safely. Do you want to break your promise? Arranging you to do this is part of the plan to send you out of the city." Asta had a kind smile on his face. "Think about it. The whole city is so heavily guarded now. Only when you appear in their sight, the guard will be relaxed, and you will have the opportunity to leave Trier." "No, what if I get caught?" Ulrich was a little persuaded, but still shook his head vigorously.
"That's why I asked you to throw the things out to attract attention." Asta looked like he had already arranged everything. "No, it's too dangerous. That can't be helped. Otherwise, I will send you and your things directly to the gate of the Eternal Sun Church. Anyway, it wasn't me who promised to help you leave last night." After a cordial and friendly exchange, Ulrich finally agreed to this matter with tears in his eyes. Catalia, who had been listening, looked at Ulrich's back as if he was determined to die, and sighed. "You really shouldn't take the Black Emperor's way." Asta sighed. "You know nothing about the eloquence of lawyers." Ulrich was on his way. In order to complete this task, he fled desperately, and soon attracted the attention and roundup of patrol soldiers and Eternal Sun Church personnel. In the end, he fled to the busy streets,
and people came to hunt him down from all directions. Looking at so many people and so many pairs of eyes, Ulrich shuddered. This situation was really too bad. But at this point, he could only choose to believe the young man. Hey, he actually forgot to ask the young man's name.
If I go to hell, won't I even know who to hate? Damn it, how could I forget such an important thing?
Ulrich's face changed, but at this moment he couldn't have any other thoughts.
Looking at the people of the Eternal Sun Church, the priests he had made friends with, and a bishop, he slowly took out the seemingly inconspicuous round stone from his jacket pocket, and said with a sinking heart, "Don't come over, otherwise, I will destroy it." There was some commotion and discussion among the people of the Eternal Sun Church, and then a priest who had a good relationship with Ulrich stood up and said with a smile on his face, "Ulrich, you are the most devout believer in God. I believe that all this must be a misunderstanding. As long as you go back to the church with us and explain the matter clearly, you will still be a respected priest in the future. You believe me, I don't believe you, it was you who first brought people into my house."
Ulrich sneered, holding the Eternal Sun's eye high in his right hand, pretending to throw it on the ground.
"What do you want?" The priest who was pushed out to talk also put away his smile on his face and looked at Ulrich with indifference.
"Please prepare a carriage for me to take me away from here, and I will return the things to you." Ulrich took the opportunity to make his request. "Okay, we will meet your request." Soon, a luxurious carriage pulled by 2 horses appeared in the field of vision.
"You guys step back first, don't come over." Ulrich warned them to keep their distance, and he stepped back step by step to the carriage, and his tense heartstrings finally relaxed a little. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the space around him was frozen, and the whole person was stiff and unable to move. He could only watch the priest come over to take the things in his hand. "We have too many ways to take things from you. Do you really think you can escape?
You are not trustworthy." For some reason, Ulrich suddenly returned to normal. He was angry and threw the round stone in his hand directly into the distance.
Then when everyone's attention was attracted, he quickly stepped on the carriage and entered the carriage. At the same time, the coachman drove the carriage towards the street where the ordinary soldiers were, and rushed straight to break a way out. Damn it, isn't that coachman arranged by us? How could he obey the command of that blasphemer? Ulrich in the carriage listened to the angry voice behind him who was thrown away by the carriage.
He was also very curious in his heart. Wasn't this coachman too cooperative with him? "Sit tight, I will fulfill my promise and send you out of the city." "It's you." Ulrich, who was uneasy, heard this voice and his mood immediately turned from sadness to joy. On the other side, the members of the Eternal Sun Church did not care too much about Ulrich's escape. Their eyes were attracted by the round stone throne. When they arrived at the area where the round stone landed, there was a collective silence. The round stone that had just landed was eaten by a dog. Yes, a mangy dog that came out of nowhere actually ate this suspected eye of a god. That is the eye of a god, the sacred object of their Eternal Sun Church. It was actually blasphemed by a dog. After a short silence, they tacitly cut open the guts of this daring scabby dog and finally took out the holy object they had been looking for a while. It smelled like a nauseating fishy smell. This holy object that should have been enshrined in the temple for all believers to worship and worship seemed to be covered with a layer of dirt and was no longer holy. The elderly bishop held the round stone in his palm and said softly, "Forget about this after you go back. You just need to remember that the eyes of God are always holy and glorious." Praise the sun. The other members of the Eternal Sun Church began to praise the sun in unison. Then they respectfully escorted the eyes of the gods back to the Eternal Sun Church. Catalya, who witnessed this scene in the dark, sneered at it. "Praise the sun. Return the eyes of God. It's just a broken stone that was fed to a dog. Where does the holiness and glory come from? It's just a trick to deceive oneself." Catalya now hopes that the round stone is really the eyes of the eternal sun left in the world. This is the real blasphemy. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Outside Trier. "Get out of the car, we're here," Hasta said calmly, indicating to Ulrich in the carriage that he could slip away. "Thanks." Ulrich thanked him before getting out of the carriage. He looked at the suburbs without high walls and felt very comfortable. When Hasta was about to drive away in the carriage, he said with hesitation, "Can you tell me the name of the lady who saved me before?" Hasta said with a smile, "No, I will not reveal a lady's name without authorization. It is very impolite. If you want to know, you can return to Trier City and ask her yourself." Hearing this, Ulrich shook his head decisively. He didn't have any bargaining chips with him now. If he returned to the city, he would definitely be caught and tied to the stake and burned alive. It's a pity that you don't have the courage to risk your life for a relationship. After speaking, Hasta drove away in the carriage, leaving Ulrich with a complicated look on his face. Even if I really have the courage, it's impossible for others to like me. Ulrich sighed, stared at Trier, who had lived for more than 10 years, and turned to embark on his new journey. Hasta, who was driving the carriage, did not drive the carriage directly back to the city. Instead, he placed it on the sidewalk in the suburbs and returned to Trier in an open and honest manner. Back at the hotel, Catalya and Sharon had already returned and were exchanging words in a low voice.
People sent him away. Well, the deal is done.
Hasta nodded, sat at the tea table, poured himself a cup of tea, and then asked Catalya what happened after he left. Everything went as expected. Eternal Sun's eyes were eaten by dogs, and then they were sent back to the Eternal Sun Church. If anything changes, it will be tonight. But before they could hear the news of the Rose School and Eternal Sun Church taking action, they heard a kid selling newspapers outside yelling that a big shot in the Sauron family had suddenly been assassinated. "The Queen has taken action," Catalya said with excitement, then went downstairs and bought 3 newspapers. Hasta took one of the newspapers and read it. This was the newspaper that was urgently printed today. On the front page was the news that a certain figure in the Sauron family had been assassinated.
After reading this news, Hasta looked at the name of the newspaper again, Intis Herald Evening News. It is indeed a pioneer. Before other newspapers could react, they had already published this major event without any concern that it would damage the reputation of the Sauron family. Maybe the person behind this newspaper is Bernadette.
Catalya, who had read the front page news 2 or 3 times, although she did not speak, her bright eyes clearly said, "The Queen is so handsome."
Even Sharon read it once, then pointed to a small line of text on the news content and said, "She may be in trouble." Trouble. Catalya immediately came over and looked at where Sharon's finger was pointing. It read, "The assassin is a mysterious lady." Catalya just thought about it for a moment and understood the meaning of what Sharon said. With the Queen's strength, if you want to assassinate someone, you don't need to show up in person, let alone be seen in person. She might have been in some trouble, so she left such crucial information. "You can't be of much help." Hasta countered Catalya's impulse to help. Catalya was silent for a while, then smiled slightly and said, "I believe in the Queen."
"Hoshi-chan, your eyes have betrayed your true thoughts." Hasta glanced at Catalya and smiled. "I also believe that no one in Trier can keep her." He believed that nothing happened to Bernadette. If she really encountered an invincible enemy, Bernadette would definitely seek help from the stars. The fact that she didn't speak proved that the situation was not that dangerous. It is estimated that someone recognized her identity during the assassination, so this newspaper specifically mentioned the title of Mysterious Lady. At night, there was a sudden commotion in the temple of the Eternal Sun Church. A group of church personnel who had just fallen asleep held torches and began to search everywhere. Tonight, just now, the temple suddenly encountered a thief. The god's eye that was just returned today was stolen in just one night. This made Bishop Mock, who was responsible for guarding the temple, so angry that his hair almost burned. In the end, he could only suppress his anger and anxiety and ordered people to start looking for suspicious traces. "Where is His Majesty the Pope? As of this afternoon, His Holiness the Pope is no longer in the church."
Bishop Mock thought of what happened today and secretly cursed Bernadette as to why she had to make trouble today, causing His Holiness the Pope to have to deal with the matter personally. Why do you keep chasing me? High above the clouds in Trier, Bernadette stared at the Pope of the Eternal Sun Church in front of her with a cold face. If it hadn't been for his sudden intervention, the Sauron family would never have been able to discover her assassination. "I don't have any ill intentions towards you." Rose Hurley motioned to Bernadette to calm down. He looked down at the commotion taking place below and said calmly, "I'm just waiting." "What are you waiting for?" "Waiting for someone to come in." "Is it related to me?" Bernadette frowned slightly. "It has nothing to do with it. I just used your presence to divert other people's attention and give them a great opportunity to act." "You want to lure out the blasphemer hiding in the dark." Ross Healy shook his head and laughed. "This statement is not accurate. The only difference between them is the belief. They are equally loyal to their beliefs. You are really an old fox." Bernadette re-examined the elderly pope. "You also deliberately blocked it before, and only gave me a chance to assassinate you today. It's a pity that the people of the Sauron family still regard you as a savior. This is a necessary sacrifice." There was no extra expression on Ross Healy's face, as if the dead Sauron family big shot was just a small ant visible to the followers. "In fact, I didn't have to go through so much trouble at the beginning, but someone seemed to have seen through this matter and deliberately sent the things back to me. I could only let it go and temporarily change the arrangement." Ross Healy's cloudy eyes flashed with a brilliance that did not belong to this age. But he did not seem to be angry about it, but there was a hint of appreciation in his words. "Is that round stone really the eye of the eternal sun?" Bernadette thought of the key point. Rose Healy smiled and said, "Yes, it is indeed the eye of God." Tonight, Trier became noisy again because of the theft of the holy relics of the Eternal Sun Church Temple. The only people who can really enjoy the quiet tonight are those who hide in the dark and work underground. "Lord Sua, we have fulfilled our mission and finally stole the eye of God from the Eternal Sun Church Temple. You did a good job." The evil god Sua took the round stone they presented respectfully. Even if he just took a simple look, he could see that the round stone contained the power to burn mountains and boil seas. "This is indeed the eye of the eternal sun. Once the new sun gets this eye as a tonic, it is estimated that it will soon rise to the sky and replace the original eternal sun. No wonder the mother goddess specially sent down the oracle and ordered herself to complete this task." After confirming the value of the eye, the god of evil Sia asked them in detail about the details of stealing the eye tonight. This success came too suddenly tonight. He had been failing recently. He thought that he would disappoint the mother goddess this time, but he did not expect it to be successful. There is a saying that goes, "There must be something wrong when things are abnormal." He did not suspect that there was something fishy here, he just did not believe in his luck. But he had confirmed that this round stone was indeed the eye of the eternal sun left in the world. Perhaps the eternal sun's luck was lower than his own. The Pope of the Eternal Sun Church is not in the church tonight. He went to capture Bernadette, who assassinated a big figure of the Sorin family, so he waited for the opportunity. The god of evil Sia listened silently, with a hint of sarcasm on his lips. Capturing Bernadette is not an easy task, and even he failed several times. After confirming that there was nothing suspicious, the god of evil Sia brought the eternal sun's eye to the black tree. On the tree canopy, the heavily covered branches slowly pulled away, and a ray of light began to radiate. The golden new sun, which had been in deep sleep, woke up at this moment. It was like the light of the rising sun illuminating the entire basement, dispelling all the darkness and shadows. Compared with the beginning, this ball of light looked more and more like a real sun. "I have retrieved the items you need." The god of eternal sun suspended the eye of the eternal sun in midair. Under the illumination of the new sun on the tree canopy, the substantial seal on the surface of the eye of the eternal sun began to slowly peel off. Soon, a miniature version of the sun appeared in midair. The two suns, one large and one small, made the god of eternal sun close his eyes slightly to avoid the light being too dazzling. The eyes of the eternal sun. The eyes of a god appeared in front of him. The evil god Sia just stared for a while and chose to leave the basement. The light here was very dazzling, and he didn't like it very much. At the same time, he needed to guard outside to avoid being disturbed in the process. The evil god Sia left the basement and came to a room in the villa. A middle-aged man with a rich appearance was standing devoutly beside him. Yam Sorin, a member of the Sorin family who was not valued much, had long been excluded from the power center of the Sorin family except for this villa for retirement. The unwillingness and resentment,
Darkness and desire in his heart made him quickly become a new member of the Rose School and offered his villa as a new hiding place for the Rose School. Yam Soren said respectfully, "Lord Sia, the people of the Eternal Sun Church are now searching for the thief tonight throughout the city. With their abilities, they will probably find this place soon. Should we leave here first? Send people to create chaos in various places to distract the attention of the Eternal Sun Church."
The evil god Sia arranged several core members of the Rose School to try their best to complete the task of distracting the attention of the Eternal Sun Church.
Now, he needs a time when he will not be disturbed. With the members of the Rose School creating chaos everywhere, Trier tonight is becoming more and more manic and restless. Asta's perception of such a chaotic atmosphere is particularly outstanding.
Tonight, he had no intention of sleeping. After the Eye of the Eternal Sun was sent back to the Eternal Sun Church, he knew that something interesting might happen tonight, so he asked the waiter to prepare some wine and food, and waited while drinking.
Now, chaos began to fall, and he also contributed to it. This accelerated the digestion of the Chaos Mentor potion in his body. If the chaos was big enough, he should be able to end his role as Chaos Mentor ahead of time and start preparing to advance to Sequence 4. That would be a real leap in the extraordinary path. By then, the Hall of Stars should also see new changes. Hasta drank his wine silently, looking at the explosions and noises rising in the distance. Catalya was sitting beside Sharon, but she didn't have as much patience as Hasta. Ever since she learned about the content in the newspaper, she has been trying to contact the Queen, but she has never succeeded. This proves that the Queen can't get away at the moment and can't even reply to her message. In such a chaotic night, she was even more worried about the Queen's safety. She also wanted to go out to look for her, but Hasta stopped her and told her not to worry. Catalya, who couldn't calm down, stood up, overlooking the chaos in the distance, and remained silent. "Is this why you came to Trier?" The person who asked was Sharon. "I don't know what will happen here, but I just feel that I should come here." Hasta answered patiently, "You know, sometimes the spirit will remind you where to go next, to seek benefits and avoid harm."
Sharon didn't say anything else, and Hasta chuckled and said, "Sharon, I'm catching up with you."
Sharon's eyes were slightly different, and she turned sideways to avoid Hasta's sight. This meant that he was about to digest the potion in his body, advance to Sequence 4, and thus catch up with him on the extraordinary path. But the light in his eyes seemed to be saying something else. Silence, waiting, until a huge mushroom cloud suddenly exploded from deep underground. The rumbling sound, like the sound of hundreds of muffled thunders exploding together, resounded throughout the night sky of Trier. No matter how soundly people slept, they were awakened by this loud noise at this moment. Except for those who were in the center of the explosion and nearby, their figures and houses were completely destroyed.
Bursts of strong air waves swept over, and some houses were directly overturned, and the shop signs on the street were smashed to the ground. Even Hasta and others who were far away from the center of the explosion felt the strong air wave. In the air wave, there was a faint breath of the Eternal Sun and the Superstar Lord. The two really faced each other tonight. Hasta was not too surprised by the direction of the story. If there was a trap in the Eye of the Eternal Sun, it must be prepared for the Superstar Lord hiding in the dark. The Church of the Eternal Sun should have allowed the Eye of the Eternal Sun to be stolen, so they were not so serious when they chased Ulrich at the beginning. Originally, they should have wanted to send the things to the Superstar Lord through Ulrich, but they passed it on to him and returned the things to the original owner, which staged another drama of the theft of the temple's holy objects. Hasta thought carefully and soon restored the matter to its original state. As an outsider, it is easier to see through other people's layout. This is his advantage, and it is also the position he should be in the future. Those who have returned to their positions should use this attitude and method to face all the outer gods. Not long after the explosion, a golden light shone from deep underground amid the billowing smoke. The dazzling light seemed to dye the night into day. As the golden light became more intense, two balls of light, one large and one small, flew out from deep underground. They competed with each other, and the blazing golden light completely dispelled the darkness of the night. Tonight, the sky of Trier went from night to day. Along with the dazzling light, there was also an unbearable heat. All the people or objects that were closer to the two light balls were melted at this moment, just like a layer of snow was easily melted by the sun.
Fortunately, the two light balls quickly flew away from Tryer's sky, just like two suns rising towards the deep space. Otherwise, the aftermath of their full-strength confrontation alone could destroy the entire capital of Intis. Two suns, one large and one small, dispelled the darkness along the way and sprinkled the light of the new day in advance.
That round stone is really the eye of the gods.
At this moment, Catalia didn't care about Bernadette's affairs. Her eyes were completely attracted by what happened tonight. After looking at it in shock for a while, her face became strange.
Throwing the eyes of the Eternal Sun to feed the dogs was her own suggestion.
If the Eternal Sun wanted to settle the score, wouldn't she be the first one? How great it would be if he lost. This was a thought that suddenly emerged in Catalia's mind. At this moment, she actually expected the Eternal Sun to lose in the battle tonight. But she quickly shook her head to suppress this idea. Although she hated the Eternal Sun Church, she didn't dare to think about it at this time. This is not something we can get involved in. Let's go to bed early, Asta smiled and suggested. He was going to the Hall of Stars to observe another fight between the Superstar Overlord and the Eternal Sun. Here, in the real world, there is no Hall of Stars as a shelter, and he dare not spy on the battle between the gods at will. Catalia stared at Asta curiously, and the meaning in her eyes was self-evident. In this situation, can you still sleep?
Asta didn't look at her, but looked at Sharon. There are many people from the Rose School tonight, remember to be careful.
Yeah. Sharon nodded, returned to the mirror, and hid her breath to avoid being found by the crazy members of the Rose School. Although it may not be a problem, there will definitely be trouble. Left alone, Catalia looked at the two suns that were about to reach the starry sky, and then glanced at the chaotic commotion in Trier tonight. It was hard for her to understand why Hasta and Sharon could maintain such a good attitude.
She would definitely not be able to sleep tonight.
On the other side, the god Sia, who was also paying close attention to this matter, was relieved after seeing the drastic changes tonight. It turned out that his luck was the same as before. Mother Goddess. After a short silence, the god Sia returned to the previous basement, which was now replaced by a huge deep pit. The black tree, which was originally lush and leafy, now had withered branches and leaves, and the trunk was broken. The thick roots like a python were almost all burned into black charcoal.
The black sticky juice now covered the broken parts of the black tree, and it was recovering rapidly. In the explosion just now, the black tree was undoubtedly the most seriously injured.
It was because the black tree bore most of the impact that Trier's injuries became much lighter. Otherwise, the first explosion alone would have been enough to destroy most of Trier. Mother Goddess, I'll take you away from here. The god of evil Sia did not hesitate, and stretched out his two arms, hugged the entire black tree, and pulled it up together with the roots. During this process, the black tree kept shrinking its body, and finally turned into a small sapling, falling into the palm of the god of evil Sia. Because of the changes tonight, the breath of the mother tree of desire has leaked out. If you don't leave here quickly, it will easily attract the gods of other gods. The god of evil Sia merged the black sapling into his body, and then tore open the spiritual world channel and quickly left here. As for the new sun, he could no longer take care of it, and had no ability to intervene. It was a battle between the superstar overlord and the eternal sun.
Although the eternal sun took the lead tonight, it might not necessarily win.
Bernadette and Rose Hurley in the high clouds had already left, avoiding the two competing suns. Even they did not dare to get too close to this war between gods.
The evil god Saya ran away, aren't you going to chase him? Bernadette asked her doubts. Rose Hurley shook his head and said, I don't have the ability to keep him. It's enough for me to take this opportunity to clean up the church. This is his home ground, and it is also a place where he is afraid to act rashly.
Maybe you can give it a try. After all, I also have a debt to settle with him, Bernadette encouraged. Rose Hurley smiled and rejected the proposal. The big explosion tonight, and the strange sight of two suns, one large and one small, appearing in the sky even though it was night, made all the people living in Trier unable to sleep all night.
Many believers of the Eternal Sun Church began to kneel down and worship, claiming that this was a miracle and that tonight was a gift from the gods.
The reason for the big explosion was that there was an evil god causing chaos, and the eternal sun god would suppress the evil god by descending from the sky. But there was no unified answer as to which one was the evil god and which one was the incarnation of the sun instead. They were divided into two factions and attacked each other. This situation further promoted the fission within the Eternal Sun Church, causing more and greater chaos to begin to spread. His Holiness the Pope, who was the backbone of the entire Eternal Sun Church, did not appear for a long time, nor did he send anyone to convey an oracle. Such a laissez-faire attitude made the Eternal Sun Church fall into a vortex of chaos, and it was difficult to get out. As the two suns gradually reached the starry sky, the dazzling light gradually faded, and the night came again, taking over the world that should have belonged to it. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta was sitting patiently in his seat, watching the struggle between the Superstar Lord and the Eternal Sun. The big sun was the Superstar Lord, and the small sun was the Eternal Sun. This time it was like the reverse of the past.
The Eternal Sun, who had taken the initiative and successfully plotted against the Superstar Lord, had been sticking to the Superstar Lord this time, and his purpose was very clear: to drive him to the crack of the initial barrier, and then join hands with other true gods to deal with the incarnation of the Superstar Lord. The Superstar Lord, who had lost the initiative, knew that his incarnation could not be saved, and wanted to find an opportunity to break through the initial barrier. Even if he failed, he wanted to use his last remaining strength to expand the crack of the initial barrier. At this time, the Mother Tree of Desire and the Superstar Lord were already wandering outside the starry sky. If it weren't for the initial barrier, the Superstar Lord would have swooped down and smashed the kingdom of Eternal Sun directly. When the two suns rose higher and higher, the god of steam and machinery took action. He did not directly target the incarnation of the Superstar Lord, but only cooperated with the Eternal Sun to drag the incarnation of the Superstar Lord into the kingdom of the Eternal Sun, hoping to completely wipe out his existence. Although the Superstar Lord resisted with all his strength, he was finally taken into the kingdom of the Eternal Sun. All this seemed to be that the Eternal Sun had an absolute upper hand. But Hasta clearly felt that the Superstar Lord deliberately took advantage of the situation to enter the kingdom of the Eternal Sun. The Eternal Sun wanted to use his own kingdom of God to completely wipe out the existence of the Superstar Lord and gain insight into the secrets of the Superstar Lord. The Superstar Lord wanted to replace the Eternal Sun by polluting the kingdom of the Eternal Sun. The two old yins will have a new fight in the kingdom of the Eternal Sun. Most likely, the Eternal Sun has other means; otherwise, with his status, he would easily get himself involved if he wanted to swallow the incarnation of the Superstar Lord by force. In this way, he actually prompted the Superstar Lord to take over his authority faster. After the god of steam and machinery helped the Eternal Sun to close the gate of the kingdom of God, only the Eternal Sun was shining in the night sky. Since then, Hasta has lost the vision to continue observing. He glanced at the Superstar Overlord outside the starry sky. He looked very upset. He probably couldn't tolerate being tricked by the Eternal Sun. Although he hasn't lost yet, he has lost face after all. Hasta can already predict the merciless ridicule of the lamp god at the next gathering. It's really exciting. After reading this, Hasta glanced at Bernadette. She didn't encounter any trouble and was chatting with an old man at the moment. Judging from the faint breath from him, he is very likely the Pope of the Eternal Sun Church. This time, he helped the Eternal Sun to lay out the plan, causing the Superstar Overlord to suffer a big loss. After just 2 glances, Hasta turned his gaze to the original hunger. The chain of stars flew out from behind him, lightly tapped the head of the planet transformed by the original hunger, and then took away a wisp of the original hunger's consciousness and returned to the Hall of Stars. As his strength improved, his ability to use the chain of stars also improved significantly, and he could even bring a wisp of his consciousness to the Hall of Stars without the permission of the original hunger. When the wisp of consciousness of the original hunger came to the Hall of Stars, it instantly turned into a miniature planet. The surface of the planet was yellow and black, and the top was snow white. It looked like an enlarged version of a gorgeous marble. The original hunger was pretending to be dead,
still maintaining the appearance of a planet, and had no intention of communicating. This trick was used by the original Superstar Master, so Hasta had a lot of experience in how to solve this situation. With a slight movement of his mind, 2 chains of stars flew out, one on the left and one on the right. He used the head of the chain to press against the bottom of the planet, and threw it out with a light force. The other chain of stars caught it and then threw it back in the same way.
After playing for a while, Primal Hunger still had no reaction, so Hasta whipped him with the chain of stars, causing him to spin around. Since he stopped whipping the genie, he hadn't experienced this kind of long-lost pleasure for a long time.
Stars, eye. The planet transformed by the primordial hunger revealed a pair of eyes and a mouth on the surface. Before he finished speaking, Hasta whipped him again, causing him to spin several circles on the spot. Stars. Snap. Another whip. Hasta found the feeling of whipping the lamp god at the beginning. Realizing that Hasta was deliberately punishing him a little, the primordial hunger closed his eyes and mouth, remained silent, and let Hasta whip him until he turned around. When Hasta stopped, he spoke again. Stars, please forgive my initial rudeness.
This is just an invitation. If you don't want to, you can choose to refuse. I am willing to come to the Star Conference. The primordial hunger answered quickly.
In today's starry sky, the reputation of the stars is no less than that of the mystery and God at the beginning. All the outer gods who are interested in understanding the world within the original barrier want to get an invitation from the stars and go to the Star Conference.
That was the meeting of the outer gods' old ones, where even the fallen mother goddess was rejected. One can imagine what kind of power the members of this meeting will form on the day of the doomsday.
Although the outer gods' old ones do not submit to each other and prefer to be alone, it does not mean that they do not have the wisdom to think. When the outer gods' old ones start to form a group, other outer gods' old ones will also spontaneously gather together. This is a natural way of self-protection.
At present, in the starry sky, the fallen mother goddess uses this name to contact the outer gods' old ones who cannot attend the Star Conference. Unfortunately, her reputation has never been very good, and the outer gods' old ones that can be won over are limited.
Most of the outer gods' old ones still choose to watch and do not want to participate in the struggle between the fallen mother goddess and the stars. He has no intention of participating, but now that he has been selected by the stars, he can only temporarily join the camp of the stars and participate in the so-called Star Conference.
A very wise choice. Hasta's faint words have a kind of impressive majesty.
What do I need to do for this? No, is it the same with the mother tree of desire? I just provide you with a place to communicate, not to enslave you. Primal Hunger pondered for a while and said, you are different from the image promoted by the fallen mother goddess.
Do you believe in the words of the fallen? Hasta's tone was a little contemptuous.
After all, he is the one with the highest status outside the starry sky, and he still has a lot of say. Hasta listened and communicated with Primal Hunger about the current situation in the starry sky. When he heard that the Ring of Destiny seemed to be related to the fallen mother goddess, Hasta really paid attention. He has always been very wary of this outer god. The power of fate can let him glimpse a lot of things. I did not invite him to attend the Star Conference, which made him feel a sense of crisis, so he turned to cooperate with the fallen mother goddess. This is a very correct choice. The Ring of Destiny is a very narrow-minded existence. Be careful of his authority and wisdom.
Primal Hunger seemed to have suffered a loss at the hands of the Ring of Destiny and had a deep understanding of this. Hasta smiled and revealed the matter, and talked about a lot of things with Primal Hunger before letting him choose a seat by himself.
Primal Hunger asked Hasta about the seating arrangements of other outer gods in the past, and decisively chose the side of the lamp god.
My relationship with the Superstar Lord is not good.
Primal Hunger explained, and seeing that Hasta was interested, he also told about things that happened many years ago. He was greedy by nature, and had conflicts with the Superstar Lord. In terms of authority, the Superstar Lord had a head start on him, which made him suffer a little. After chatting for a while, Hasta sent Primal Hunger away, and then deliberately glanced at the star where the Ring of Fate was located. He still acted very calm, as if he was sleeping.
Hasta quickly retracted his gaze to avoid being noticed by the Ring of Fate. Finally, He scanned the circle as usual before returning to the real world.
Tonight is the chaotic night of Intis, and the Chaos Mentor potion in his body is almost completely digested. During the last chaos of King George III in Backland, the Chaos Mentor potion in his body was digested a lot. Although he was not the leader of this chaotic situation, he also intervened in part, which was enough to completely digest the potion in his body. It is not difficult to advance to sequence 4. The difficult part is to choose the right extraordinary path, whether to continue to take the Black Emperor path, or jump to the adjacent Judge path, or jump to the Yellow King path and the Star path. He is more interested in the Star extraordinary path. Since he was born, the Star Hall has been deeply bound to him. Taking the Star extraordinary path can best exert the authority and ability of the Star Hall. But he is also deeply afraid that the Star extraordinary path will go too fast in the later stage, just like Klein, who is bound to Saphira Castle, and finally makes wedding clothes for others. It's a pity that peeping into fate can't help me see the way forward.
Asta thought that he had tried to peeping into fate to see which extraordinary path was most suitable for him. As a result, every extraordinary path was very suitable. No matter what he chose, his future would be on the good side. Judging from this result, he is truly the darling of fate.
Hastur pondered for a while and then concentrated on feeling the chaos in Trier tonight, so as to digest the Chaos Mentor potion in his body. Hastur did not wake up from his deep sleep until the afternoon of the next day, and the Chaos Mentor potion in his body had been completely digested. After getting up and taking a bath, Hastur went downstairs to eat something, and returned to the room to wait for an hour before Sharon and Catalia returned from outside. Catalia seemed to be in a good mood, and it should be Bernadette who contacted her. Sharon just glanced at Hastur, and knew in her heart that he had completely digested the Chaos Mentor potion and was about to catch up with her. "Let's go back tomorrow," Hastur suggested. "Okay," Sharon nodded. "Leaving so soon?" Catalia said with regret. "If you stay any longer, maybe the Eternal Sun will deliberately lower his eyes and look for the person who fed his eyes to the dog." Hastur's joke made Catalia look unnatural. If the Eternal Sun really wants to investigate this matter, she will definitely not be able to get away from it.
At night, Hastur and Sharon had not left Trier yet when they met the young man who claimed to be Ross Hurley again.
He came to the door on his own. His purpose was the same as last time, and he still wanted to invite Hastur to join the Church of the Eternal Sun, but Hastur gave him the same rejection.
Although he wanted to get involved in the power of the sun, it was too early for him to reach sequence 5. "I think we will meet again in the future. I hope you will give me a different answer then."
Ross Hurley did not entangle. When he stood up to leave, he glanced at Catalia, feeding the eyes of the gods to a dog. Such blasphemy needs to be atonement. If you have time, you should come to the church. This sentence made Catalia stagnate. Why did they suddenly talk about this topic? And it was obviously Hastur who pushed this matter. But why was this man so sure that he did it?
"What does this have to do with me?" Catalia answered with a deliberately cold face. "Destiny will always leave some traces without you noticing, and the traces you left are not wiped clean." Catalia watched Ross Hurley leave in silence, and then looked at Asta with a strange look.
Asta smiled and said, "I told you not to stay here. Be careful not to attract attention. You see, it works now." "Why didn't he see you? People are different," Asta said meaningfully.
He naturally knew what was going on. It was not an easy thing to see yourself when spying on fate. "You'd better find a chance to go to the Eternal Sun Church recently."
Just as Catalia was still thinking, a voice came in. Bernadette came back. "Who is that person?" "The Pope of the Eternal Sun Church." Catalia was silent again, and finally nodded, indicating that she would go to the Eternal Sun Church in the next few days. Trouble comes from the mouth, and what Emperor Roussel said is indeed correct.
The Pope of the Eternal Sun Church still has a lot of weight in his words. But she didn't understand why Hastur could stay out of this matter. Was it simply because he started this matter? The next day, Hastur led Sharon back to Southwell County through the spirit world. Catalia obediently went to the Eternal Sun Church. She needed to help the Eternal Sun Church complete a task to eliminate her disrespect for the Eternal Sun.
In this matter, Bernadette did not help her, but took advantage of the internal strife of the Eternal Sun Church to kill 2 high-ranking members of the Sorin family.
After her investigation over the years, she knew that these people had participated in the massacre of the Gustav family, and now she was just seeking revenge.
In Southwell County, during the half-month that Hastur was away, Prince Leonard from Backland had been lying in bed for various reasons, and many things were left to Alfred. It was not until a few days after Hastur returned to Southwell County that Leonard Augustus got up from the bed and moved around.
His legs were shaking, his face was still pale, but the anger in his eyes was about to form a substantial flame.
Have you checked it out? As the younger brother of King Rune, he naturally has powerful, extraordinary people around him to protect him. He didn't pay too much attention to the previous few accidents, but the continuous accidents and coincidences made him lie in bed every day and couldn't do any work. If he doesn't learn his lesson, he will be really stupid. People who are good at hiding in the dark and manipulating fate, if they are not from the School of Life, they are members of the Yellow Monk organization. We suspect that the latter is more likely. This is an extremely mysterious organization. Even the information about them in the major churches is not much.
If that Earl Campbell is a member of the Yellow Monk organization, then everything makes sense.
After listening to the report, Leonard Augustus gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and slammed them hard on the table, but soon, he coughed heavily. His body has just recovered, and he can't get angry.
After calming down his anger, he lowered his voice and asked, whether he is a member of the Yellow Monk organization or not, as long as it is clear that he is secretly targeting me, we can't let him go. The Yellow Monk organization is too mysterious, we still have to be careful, so as not to.
What to avoid? Leonard Augustus slammed the table again and said angrily, this is the kingdom of Lowen, the land ruled by our Augustus family, he is just. Before he finished speaking, he was too excited and got a short breath. He collapsed on the chair, exhaling more than inhaling, and almost foamed at the corners of his mouth.
The person next to him was very experienced and helped him lie on the bed again, and then called a doctor to check his physical condition.
During this period of time, they have become accustomed to Prince Leonard's problems from time to time. Every time he was about to do something big, there would basically be an accident. They also tried to stop it, but this kind of accident and coincidence is not a curse, but a kind of manipulation of fate.
There is a chance of choking to death when drinking water, falling to death when walking on flat ground, and there is a chance of being angry to death. Those extraordinary people who hide in the dark and manipulate fate only increase the probability of these things happening, turning low probability events into high probability events. Only extraordinary people who are also in the path of fate have the ability to discover and change the occurrence of things. But the extraordinary people of the School of Life have been scattered since their president disappeared, and no one knows where they are hiding. Even the Lowen royal family has no good solution for this matter. According to the latest situation reported back from Backland, the royal family intends to ask the members of the secret order for help. Although they are not extraordinary people in the path of fate, they can predict the corresponding fluctuations of fate, and perhaps find the group of yellow-robed monks hiding in the dark. In Punan Port, Asta, who came back from Intis, was listening to Kiza's report during this period. Except for the things about Prince Leonard, there is nothing major. As for the war between the Kingdom of Lowen and the Faesak Empire, the Kingdom of Lowen has the upper hand and has been advancing towards the territory of Faesak. The defeat of the Faesak Empire is a matter of time. Without the protection of the god of war, they will naturally lose the right to rule the battlefield. In addition, the goddess of night began to devour the power of the god of war. At present, the Church of the God of War has split into 2 factions, which is more intense than the internal struggle of the Church of the Eternal Sun. As time goes by, the more power the Goddess of Night holds, the greater the influence, and the balance has already tilted. After solving these trivial matters, Hastur returned to his room and began to think about the promotion to Sequence 4. After thinking for a while, he decided to take the path of the stars. At present, there are a bunch of outer gods outside the starry sky. Even if he can become a god in the future, he can't change anything. Only with the help of the Hall of Stars can he really do something. No matter how powerful a Yellow King is, it is not enough to deter the outer gods. Only the return of the stars can effectively resist the coming of the end of the world. Now, he already has a sequence 4 Fallen Earl's Beander characteristics in his hand. He only needs to equip himself with some Beander materials, and he can use the Star Hall to hold the corresponding promotion ceremony to jump to sequence 4 Lost Homelander. With the collection ability of the Yellow Monk members, they can quickly gather all the Beander materials. Only the promotion ceremony is a bit more difficult. The ceremony for promotion to sequence 4 Lost Homelander is: take a magic potion to advance in the place where your soul rests, and then gradually forget everything in the past, becoming a rootless duckweed, with only the starry sky above your head to illuminate the way forward. Hometown, this word is extremely luxurious for Hasta. If it is the hometown where he was born and raised in a narrow sense, then he certainly can't go back. According to the broad meaning of hometown, Backland is the place where he has lived the longest since he came to this world, but it is not the home of his soul. He has never regarded Backland as his second hometown. Think about it carefully, in this mysterious world, he has never had a place to rest his soul. He has always believed that he is a time traveler, and there is a natural gap between him and this world. Where is his spiritual home? Even he himself doesn't know. Fortunately, he still has a lot of time to think about this problem, or maybe he misunderstood this sentence. Hasta stayed in the room until dinner time at night before he walked out of the room. Azishara, who was guarding outside the door, pounced on him and jumped into his arms accurately. During this period, Azishara had come once. Seeing that Hasta was thinking deeply, it did not disturb him, but quietly guarded outside the door to avoid being disturbed. It's rare that you are so diligent this time. Hasta stroked Azishara's head, took it down the stairs, and came to the restaurant for dinner. Hasta is very happy to eat and enjoy delicious food, and Azishara follows his temper, but Sharon is not interested. Basically, she may only eat once a week, and her energy consumption is pitifully low. This makes Hasta seriously suspect that long-term insufficient food intake and lack of nutrition may be the culprit that hinders Sharon's continued growth. Well, but Sharon is still very cute now. If she is as greedy as Azishara, it will seriously damage her image. In Silver City, Mr. A has set off and continues to embark on a pilgrimage road that belongs to him. Many residents of Silver City follow him, including Elder Lovia. Chief Colin did not object to this matter. This is also an opportunity for them to communicate with the outside world. There are many city-state tribes living in the God-forsaken land. In the past, because of the monsters in the dark, they did not dare to explore at will. This time, following Mr. A, without the harassment of the monsters in the dark, may bring a different change to Silver City. Get ready. We will continue to explore Afternoon Town tomorrow. As Colin spoke, Derek and others went home and began to pack up. The next day, the Silver City team continued to go to Afternoon Town, which was exactly the opposite direction of Mr. A. The sky was filled with lightning and thunder, and the dark world could not distinguish between day and night, let alone morning and afternoon. Derek could not tell the difference either. Every time he heard the sound of Mr. Fool's meeting, he could really realize that another week had passed. This time, as usual, when Mr. Fool reminded him of the meeting, he chose to be alone on the grounds of feeling unwell, and then counted the time in his heart. When the countdown reached 0, he was teleported to the position of the bronze long table by Mr. Fool's great power. Mr. Fool, good afternoon. Mr. Hanged Man, good afternoon. The first thing that started was still Miss Justice's warm and friendly greeting. Derek showed a shy smile on his face. Although he only made a deal with Miss Justice last time, Miss Justice later sent him food twice through Mr. Fool. Let him really taste the delicacies of the outside world, and at the same time make his normal eating tasteless. But he was still very grateful for Miss Justice's feeding. In order to repay Miss Justice's kindness, he specially asked the chief for a copy of the extraordinary materials that Miss Justice had purchased. When Mr. Fool finished reading Russell's diary every week, he announced that the Tarot Club would enter the next stage. The first person to speak was Alger, the Hanged Man. He said in a cold tone, "Recently, a major incident occurred in Trier, the capital of Intis. A huge deep pit was blown out of the entire capital. The area within a radius of hundreds of meters was completely destroyed, and no one survived.
In this regard, the investigation report given by the INTIS official pointed out that this was a terrorist attack from FASAC and a long-planned revenge.
But according to the information I have received, the truth is not so. It is said to be related to the gods. Alger told the biggest intelligence he had obtained during this period, and then looked at Mr. Fool expectantly, waiting for his explanation.
Republic of INTIS? Capital Trier? Huge explosion, suspected to be related to the gods? Mr. Hanged Man, what makes you think Mr. Fool knows everything? Mr. Fool is not omnipotent. Klein complained in his heart. He was busy hunting pirates and had no idea what happened in INTIS. So he could only smile and ignore Mr. Hanged Man's expectant eyes.
Mr. Fool did not speak. Others were also confused about this matter and did not know what to say. Finally, they all looked at Mr. Fool, who was sitting in the first seat.
Silence, silence is Mr. Fool today. Mr. Fool, who was in the spotlight, naturally could not let the atmosphere become awkward. He wanted to say that you should not be exposed to this information.
But he felt that this sentence would lose its original effect if it was used too much.
Finally, Mr. Fool said lightly, "Eternal Sun has encountered some troubles."
This sentence was summarized by him based on Mr. Hanged Man's words.
INTIS is a place blessed by the eternal blazing sun. Since this incident is related to the gods, it is basically the eternal blazing sun. He has experienced the Lord of Storms, so it is normal for the eternal blazing sun to have a god descend.
And the god descending itself means trouble. When the Tarot Club members heard this, they all showed satisfaction and surprise on their faces.
They also knew that they could only hear this at most. If they continued, they might lose control on the spot. "Everyone, I have something to announce." Klein waited until everyone's attention was focused before continuing. In the future, the Tarot Club will be changed from once a week to once every 2 weeks. As the strength of the Tarot Club members improved, once a week was too short. It would be better to change it to once every 2 weeks or once a month. Moreover, he is currently hunting pirates on the sea. The weekly Tarot Club makes it more inconvenient for him to act. He thinks that changing it to once every 2 weeks is a better choice.
How could this happen? Audrey was full of disappointment. Her weekly happiness was divided in half.
The other members of the Tarot Club had no objections, and Furs was even relieved.
Seeing that no one raised any objections, Klein was in a good mood.
Now, he could better arrange the time for hunting pirates. After finishing this week's Tarot Club, Audrey sat alone at the desk and sulked. If it weren't for the last session, Little Sun gave her a piece of extraordinary materials that she had been acquiring for a long time, her mood would definitely be worse. In addition to this matter, there was another thing that made her very angry.
Her second brother Alfred actually left Mr. Asta and followed Prince Leonard to do things.
Anyone with a little wisdom should understand that Prince Leonard, who was sent to South Wales as the Grand Duke, would never have a good relationship with Mr. Asta.
One place cannot tolerate two different voices. After thinking for a while, Audrey picked up the pen and wrote, "Alfred, I respect your choice, and I know you must have your own ideas, but I still want to say, is it because of the long-term life in the southern continent that you have become so short-sighted now?" Audrey, who was not in a very happy mood, unconsciously wrote a harsher and sharper pen.
After writing the letter to Alfred, Audrey took out a new piece of letter paper and wrote a letter to Mr. Asta. "Mr. Asta, Alfred's short-sightedness shocked me. I think I should apologize to you. After all, it was me who introduced you to each other."
Audrey was halfway through writing, her head tilted slightly, her left hand supporting her cheek, and she was lost in thought.
She had many things to share with Mr. Asta, and she didn't know where to start for a moment. It was only about a month since Mr. Asta left Backland last time. "Audrey, my letter is also written, woof." Susie came to Audrey's feet with a written letter in her mouth, gently touched her feet, and signaled her to send her letter to Mr. Asta as well.
"Susie." Audrey sighed, and finally put away the letter Susie wrote.
"Audrey, you are in a bad mood today." "Well, I'm thinking about something." Susie wagged her tail and said, "Is there anything I can help with?" "No," Audrey refused mercilessly. After the episode, Audrey also found something to continue writing. It was late at night, and Hasta was communicating with Will through dreams. Unlike before, this time it was Will who took the initiative to contact him and entered his dream as a person seeking help.
Asta, I really can't stand that stupid snake staying in Backland all the time. Can you help me think of a way to trick that stupid snake away? Asta was amused when he heard it, and teased, didn't you say that Ouroboros's IQ couldn't pose a threat to you? Will, who was wearing a blue pajamas with a little turtle printed on it, said angrily, of course he can't pose a threat to me, but he is annoying enough. I haven't had delicious ice cream for a long time. This last sentence is the key point. It turned out that he was angry because he couldn't eat ice cream, and those who didn't know thought that Will was bullying him because of his bullying, which made Will complain in tears like this. Is it hard to get rid of? The stupid snake is determined to waste time with me in Backland this time. It's really annoying. I really want to find a pot to stew him into snake soup. When Will was angry, he conjured up a piece of ice cream in his right hand and took a few licks of it happily. Seeing that the child is greedy, he can only satisfy his little wish to eat ice cream in his dreams. Hasta felt funny, how do you want me to help you? Find something to lure him away. His IQ is not high. You just need to find a suitable reason for him, and he will stay away from Backland. How about a divine visitation? Will's eyes widened, and after a while he muttered softly, although it's a bit risky, it's not impossible. Will, in order to have a bite of ice cream, you would rather trigger a divine attack. Didn't you say that yourself? Will turned sideways with a guilty conscience. After teasing Will, Hasta already had some ideas on how to lure Aurelius away. For Aurelius, apart from devouring Will, a competitor with the same path, the most worthy of attention is the true creator. All it takes is a little movement from the true creator to draw his attention away from Backland. The star container is the best choice to accomplish this. It just feels like it's not worth it to go through all this trouble just for a bite of ice cream. Perhaps aware of Hasta's thoughts, Will said with a serious face, that's more than just a mouthful of ice cream, it's my spiritual food, it's my second life. Now, my life is being threatened, how can I still? Isn't it worth your while to save me? Are you Mercury snakes greedy? Nonsense, haven't you heard of the adjective, snake? Will said very plausibly, with a little pride in his words, even with his hands on his hips. I will try to help you lure Aurelius away. Hasta thought it would be wiser to give up discussing this issue with Will. I also have a question to ask you. After listening to Hasta's story, Will walked around Hasta twice before curiously asking, who said that the place where the soul belongs must be the hometown? Some people leave their hometown where they were born and raised, and they are like wild horses running wild, running so fast that they can't wait to be far away from their hometown. Some people are focused on money and power, and the destination of their hearts is gold pounds or crowns. We'll discuss the issue of spiritual destination with Hasta very seriously. In his opinion, the specific meaning of spiritual destination should be the place that the heart longs for most, not just the hometown. After hearing this, Hasta also understood that the people who have lost their homes do not refer to those who have lost their hometown, but those who have lost their spiritual home and have nowhere to rely on. It's like taking away the most important piece of your soul. For Emperor Russell in his later years, his spiritual destination was his hometown. Once people get old, it is easy to miss the past. The older you get, the harder it is to leave your hometown. The closer you are to death, the more you miss the place where you were born. But for myself, it's not necessarily the case. After all, I have not been in the mysterious world for a long time. I am just like a worker who has been working outside for a year and a half. Although I miss my hometown, I am not that attached to it. You need to find the answer to this question yourself. Others can only give you some suggestions and cannot really help you. As Will spoke, he stood on tiptoes and patted Hasta's shoulder sincerely. So your soul's destination is ice cream. Will's facial expression froze, thinking about it carefully, it was indeed like this. Ice cream can be the home of the soul, it sounds too childish. Don't feel ashamed, after all, you have always been like this. Will turned around silently, and finally told Hasta to lure Aurelius away, and then slipped away. Where is the destination of my soul? Will it be the place where I was first born? Or in the Hall of Stars? Hasta continued to be lost in thought. This question had a bit of a philosophical flavor. It was easy to think too much but only get a lot of painless groans. Backlund, who had been lingering in Aurelius, where Backlund refused to leave, was walking on the street like a normal person. Destiny will attract each other, especially at their level. The instinct of aggregation attracts them to each other all the time. Although this attraction can be blocked, it becomes increasingly difficult to block it over time. He really couldn't find any trace of another Mercury snake, but a voice in his heart told him that he was very close. Unless the other party suddenly left Backlund, if he kept wandering around, he would surely catch the loach that was good at hide and seek. As for Backlund's divine descent, I am afraid that only the god of steam and machinery is watching here, and he is the true god who least needs to worry. As he continued walking slowly along the street, he suddenly sensed that someone was trying to enter the Lord's resting place. Aurelius frowned slightly, as if he was making a decision, but finally sighed and chose to leave Backlund. Backlund is still the same as before, nothing different. 3 days later, Ouroboros appeared in Backlund again and searched for wool carefully, but still found nothing. During this time, he had been hiding in the dark, trying to take the opportunity to fish out wool, but to no avail. He wandered around Backlund for a few more days before leaving Backlund and returning to the god-forsaken land. In a rented house where ordinary people live, Will was lazily lying on the sofa, comfortably enjoying his long-lost ice cream companion. It was easy to see through the thoughts of the stupid snake Ouroboros, whose IQ basically said goodbye to the possibility of using wisdom. According to his estimation, Ouroboros should return to Backlund again in a week. During this time, he can finally enjoy ice cream to his heart's content. Has the help not arrived yet? Leonard Augustus said weakly while lying on the hospital bed. This time, the reason for his illness was not accident or coincidence, but a long-term illness. After a series of accidents and coincidences, his body was already exhausted. Even if there was no accident as a push, he himself might fall down like this. The latest news is that you should wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. Waiting to take back my urn. Leonard Augustus waved his hand in disgust, signaling them to leave. Is the first thing my brother did when he ascended to the throne of king to pave the way for him with my life. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shudder. Outside the ward, Alfred was silent for a long time, and finally chose to leave. Being scolded by Audrey made him want to resign from Prince Leonard and leave, but seeing the pitiful experience of Prince Leonard lying on the bed, he couldn't bear it and could only continue to handle related matters for him. 2 days later, Leonard Augustus, the new Grand Duke of South Wales, who was depressed, died on the bed in his villa. Prince Leonard is dead. Alfred was shocked when he received the news, and hurried to the villa where he was, only to see Prince Leonard's body covered by a white cloth. We need to report to the king and ask him to avenge Prince Leonard. Prince Leonard did not die of natural causes but was killed in secret. Poor Prince Leonard is not even 30 years old yet. Alfred stood aside, listening to the indignant accusations of Prince Leonard's cronies, especially the name of Earl Hasta Campbell mentioned many times in their words. He knew that another big storm was about to set off in South Wales. In Pennine Harbour, Hasta also received the corresponding news within a few hours of Leonard Augustus' death. In the study, Keyes stood aside, trembling slightly. This was the first time he messed up something. Tell me, how did he die? Hasta rubbed his eyebrows lightly, feeling a little headache. He has been busy with the promotion of Sequence 4 Lost Homelander recently, and has no time to pay attention to what is happening outside. In his original plan, the accident and coincidence against Leonard Augustus was just to cover up the blank time when he went to Intis. After he came back, Keyes stopped targeting him, but he didn't expect that Prince Leonard would die so soon. This would undoubtedly make Backlund focus on him. It had only been a short time, and 2 Grand Dukes of Southwell had died in succession. He was the most suspicious and could not withstand any investigation. He died of natural illness. It should be because his body was too weak and he became ill due to worry. Didn't you fail to grasp the measure? We have always followed your arrangements and never thought of killing him. At this point, Keyes said with an ugly face, it is not ruled out that this is a chain reaction. Asta thought for a while, then let Keys leave and went to investigate the matter. Backland should be very lively now, Asta whispered, and then his mind drifted to the matter of the lost people who were promoted to Sequence 4. As for this matter, it was just a small setback, but he didn't like this kind of trouble outside the plan. Backland. The news of Leonard Augustus' death was immediately transmitted from Southville to the desk of the new king, Govington II. Govington II was furious and said that he would make the murderer of his brother pay the price, and entrusted the three major churches to jointly handle the matter. Soon, the matter spread throughout the upper class of the entire Loan Kingdom. Even Audrey, who had been staying at home recently, heard all kinds of discussions coming from outside. The most widely spread version at present is related to Hasta, saying that he secretly killed 2 Grand Dukes of Southville in order to control all the power in Southville. This version seemed to come out suddenly, and soon it spread among the Loan dignitaries. Susie, there is something I need you to do. In the room, after some thinking, Audrey decided to send her most capable assistant, Susie, to help her find out the truth of the matter. Woof. Susie stood up with a shaken body, looking like she was responsible for everything. Recently, there have been a lot of rumors in Backland that are unfavorable to Mr. Asta. I want you to ask Furs and Zio to help investigate who is secretly spreading these news. At the same time, from now on, you should try to follow Earl Hall every day, listen to what happened to Mr. Asta, and then come back to report to me. Audrey paused for a while, giving Susie some time to receive the information, and then continued to add some small details that needed attention. After arranging Susie's work, Audrey was also thinking about what she could do to help Mr. Asta, who was far away in Southwell County. As for the death of the 2 former Grand Dukes of Southwell, she didn't know whether it was related to Mr. Asta, but in Backland's current situation, there must be someone secretly fueling the flames. She wanted to help Mr. Asta find these people. I must write a letter to remind Mr. Asta and let him know that someone in Backland is secretly targeting him. Audrey quickly wrote a letter and sent someone to send it to Southwell County. Earl Hall saw this little move, but did not stop it. Instead, he asked Audrey to go to his study and told her some deeper news. The new king, Covington II, gradually accumulated reputation due to the victory in the battlefield of the Fasak Empire, and even had a tendency to surpass George III. After the victory in the Foreign War, he naturally wanted to eliminate some disobedient nobles in the country. Asta, who was sent to garrison Southwell County, was one of them. Even the Hall family and the Negan family were within the scope of suppression, but it was not so obvious yet. Emperor Russell once said, "One king, one noble." The new king will naturally promote some emerging nobles and sweep some disobedient and stubborn old nobles into the garbage dump. Audrey listened quietly, then extracted the key information and summarized it, and wrote another letter to Mr. Asta later. I believe this is what Earl Hall hopes for. At the internal meeting of the royal family, Covington II sat on the throne, looking coldly at these important royal members, and the atmosphere was a little depressing. Let the 3 major churches handle the affairs of Southwell County. A prince, my brother, died inexplicably in Southwell County. Someone needs to be held accountable for this. Some old guys in Backland should also step down. The old and the new always need to take turns. The Negan family, the Hall family, the Abe family, Frank, Deedon. Govington II read out the names of the families in a gentle tone. The news of the victory over the Fussac Empire from the front battlefield just boosted his prestige. This is the best time to take action against the old nobles. Will this be too big a step at once? Some members of the royal family worried that it would cause civil unrest. Why did they cause unrest? The title of nobility is just a piece of glass that will break at the touch of a musket barrel. I'm worried about the economy. The Hall family and the Negan family are both deeply involved in business. If they are pushed too hard, it will easily cause them to resist. After a long discussion, Govington II waved away everyone and sat on the throne alone. Before he sat on this position, the throne was hot, but after he really sat on it, it was cold, piercingly cold. Is it worth sacrificing my brother just to deal with a young earl? It's worth it. Covington II's expression suddenly turned cold. Anyone who may overthrow our Augustus family should be strangled in time. The mysterious Zeratul had predicted the future of 3 people for him. First, Brett Nigan, then Audrey Hall, and finally Hasta Campbell. The person who would overthrow Augustus, rule over Rune in the prophecy was Hasta Campbell. He had asked Zeratul many times how the young earl would overthrow their Augustus family, but he didn't get a reply. Zeratul has never appeared again. According to the people of the secret society, he has gone crazy again, and the situation is more serious than ever before. He couldn't know the specific situation, but he vaguely felt that Zeratul's change was related to the 3 prophecies predicted by him. This also made him more convinced that he must get rid of the Earl Hasta Campbell. At St. Samuel's Church, Leonard received the task of going to South Wales to investigate again, but he refused. This time, the church did not force him, but respected his wishes and sent other people to South Wales to investigate. After returning to his room, Leonard began to ask the old man about his opinion on this matter. Very good. That was all the old man said to him. No matter how he asked, he got no other response. Leonard finally sighed and said, "Hasta, how can you be so troublesome?" Although there was no evidence, he firmly believed that Hasta was definitely related to the death of the 2 Grand Dukes of Southwell. When a person is always involved in trouble, it means that he himself is a big trouble. Hasta, who is missed by many people, has found his spiritual home, and the Star Palace is his spiritual home now. Since he was born into this world and entered the Star Palace, he has always had high hopes for the Star Palace. When encountering things, the first thing he thought of was the Star Palace, and the Star Palace was the one that was most closely connected to him. This is where he placed his soul, and it is the only pure land in his soul. But all along, he had never really entered the Star Palace. He only entered it through dreams and spirits. His body has been staying outside the Hall of Stars. In other words, his body and mind have not been completely integrated with the Hall of Stars. He needs to really enter the Hall of Stars and then take the Lost Hometown Potion, so that he can really be promoted. Once the puzzle is solved, things will be much easier. It is not difficult to enter the Hall of Stars, but you have to pay attention to various security measures to avoid being discovered that he is the real body of the stars. There are many believers in the stars, but only a few can really be trusted by him. Although Grey Carey performed very well, she has never been able to make him completely trust her. The Yellow Monk organization is the same. Maybe one day they will suddenly turn against him because of the appearance of the Yellow King. Although the star container is good, he has no ability to distract himself to manipulate him when he breaks through, and his existence may attract the attention of the real creator at a certain time period. It seems that Sharon will have to be troubled in the end. Before that, Hastur made the time worm on Amon's body into a time spell according to Will's instructions. A total of 10 spells were made, which cost him a lot of energy and time. The time spell he finally made was a little different from the Yesterday's Reappearance spell he made with Klein. Yesterday's Reappearance spell was mainly useful for Will, the messenger lady, and the grandfather in Leonard's body. These beings who had been severely injured were more useful, and could allow them to recover their previous peak strength in a short period of time. The time spell he made in combination with the Hall of Stars was also known as the Time Reset spell and the Time Zeroing spell. When used on an enemy, it can reset the state of the concept related to time on him to 0. For example, it can reset the strengthening effect he has applied to himself for a certain period of time to 0. And it can also reset the existence time of various organs in his body, and even the lifespan time to 0. Of course, the actual effect is definitely not that perverted, but it does have the ability to shorten people's lifespan. When used on oneself, it can reset the time state, and the scope of application is very wide. For example, when using a seal with serious negative effects, the negative effects can be reset directly, and the ability that is used once every few days can be reset to increase the chance of use. To put it simply, it is a 0 CD cooling rune. Hastur estimated that even if Aemon personally refined the time worm in his body into a spell, it would not have such a perverted effect. Zeroing is the sequence 0 of the star path. This authority belongs only to the star returner. There may be some other effects, but Hastur has not yet fully discovered them. After the refining was completed, Hastur began to think about the distribution plan of the 10-time spells. Finally, he decided to give 2 to Sharon and 1 to Azishara.
Originally, he also planned to give 2-time spells to Audrey and Susie, but using this thing might attract Amon's attention, so it is better not to let Audrey get involved in these things for the time being. Moreover, it is not safe to send things from South Will County to Backland on the road. As for Will, Hastur planned to give him 2-time worms directly. Perhaps he has other uses for this thing. After making all kinds of preparations, Hastur began to choose a suitable time and place. In order to ensure that there would be no accidents, he specially gave the messenger 2-time spells and asked her to help take care of them. As for Lady Lisa and the members of the Yellow Monk, they were arranged at the outermost edge. The closest to him were Sharon and Azishara. Of course, everything seemed normal on the surface, and only Sharon vaguely knew that he was preparing for promotion. On September 22, everything was normal in Panine Harbor. The 3 major church investigators from Backland have secretly come to Southville County. With the experience of the Red Gloves team of the Church of the Night last time, they were very tactful and did not come directly to Panine Harbor, but instead investigated the death of Leonard Augustus. During the investigation, they found that the real cause of death of Leonard Augustus was anxiety, which eventually led to his sudden death. The previous accidents and coincidences were only indirect effects. But such an investigation is obviously not enough. They also need to investigate the source of accidents and coincidences, as well as the cause of the strange death of the former Grand Duke of Southville. If Drinker Augustus, who is unknown whether he is dead or alive, is included, there are 3 Grand Dukes of Southville who died here. It makes people's scalp numb just thinking about it. If there is no hidden secret, who can believe it? The biggest suspect in these things is naturally the Earl of Hasta Campbell. The motive is simple, and the only thing that needs to be confirmed is whether he has the ability to commit the crime. When the investigation was nearing its end, the investigators sent by the 3 gods held a special meeting to discuss who would lead the team to Punning Port to conduct the investigation. During the discussion, the people of the Church of the Night were not very active, and finally the members of the Mechanical Heart took over the leading task. When the investigation team led by the members of the Mechanical Heart arrived at Punning Port, their spirits were in a state of mania, as if the small port in front of them contained a huge danger that could swallow their lives. But at this time, they had just got off the carriage and had not yet started the investigation. I always feel something is wrong. Even the breeze in the air seems to be refusing our approach, someone said. The others were silent, and finally entered Punning Port to conduct the investigation. This time, the 3 gods' church jointly investigated, with sufficient material and manpower. If they fled back to Backland in disgrace, they would be ridiculed. When they were about to visit the young Earl Hasta Campbell with courtesy before force, and drove all the way to where he lived, they were stopped. 4 guards dressed like ordinary soldiers blocked their way forward, and the coldness in their tone revealed that there was no room for compromise. What made them feel even more horrible was that these 4 guards gave them a terrible feeling, as if they would be chopped off their heads with a sharp blade the next moment if they didn't obey. But they could only continue to communicate with courage, but it didn't work. They were still blocked outside. Even if they had already brought out the names of the 3 major churches, they couldn't cross the line. A member of the investigation team wanted to try whether he could solve the people in front of him through extraordinary abilities, but when the guard's eyes swept over, he trembled with fear and dared not have any other ideas. There was no way, they could only find a place to live first. I think it's better to leave directly to avoid any accidents, a member of the Church of the Night said cautiously. Even if you want to stay, don't choose to live in the hotel. This is a piece of advice. Is there anything you can't say more clearly? The leader of the Mechanical Heart scolded dissatisfiedly, saying that they were sneaking around like people doing bad things in the dark. Last time, the Red Gloves came here to investigate something. They lived in the inn at that time. The member of the Church of Night described in detail the situation that the Red Gloves encountered. After listening, the investigation team looked at each other and finally chose to live in the house of a viscount. Then, in the following days, they kept circling around this area and had no chance to go out again. In the heavily guarded house, Azishara was patrolling with her eyes wide open. She looked so serious that even if a pile of dried fish was placed in front of her, her eyes would not be diverted. Just 2 days ago, it accepted the great mission of protecting the safety of its master. With the mission in hand, it no longer lazily and greedily and patrolled seriously all day long. It would only respond a few times when Sharon summoned it. Outside the door of the room where Hasta lived, Sharon was like an exquisite puppet, quietly guarding the people in the room. Her lifeless eyes would only ripple when she swept over Azishara. It is a difficult process to advance from sequence 5 to sequence 4. During this process, the advancement itself may fail for various reasons, and finally fall into madness. If you cannot keep quiet or are deliberately disturbed by others, then there is basically no hope of successful advancement.
As strong as George III was, when he was promoted to the Black Emperor, he was also at his most vulnerable. Otherwise, as a Sequence 1 who possessed the extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness of the other two Sequence 1s, his strength was only below that of a true god. It was because of being disturbed that he failed to advance and fell completely. When she was promoted to Sequence 4, many people from the Temperance faction also guarded her day and night to prevent her from being suddenly disturbed. This allowed her to successfully advance and escape the dangerous period. Hasta's situation is similar to hers. Although the people guarding the periphery are very powerful, the person guarding the closest is herself. Those who can stand in this position are undoubtedly the most trusted people. Keyes had come to report the matter, but was sent away by Sharon. Madame Lisa realized something and took the initiative to cooperate with Sharon, arranging the members of the Yellow Monks in the outer circle area, and strictly prohibited anyone from disturbing them during this period. She also stayed outside and prohibited anyone from coming to Sharon. At this time, Madame Lisa was undoubtedly reliable. The only thing that worried Sharon now was Asta's own promotion in the room. I don't know if it was an illusion, but she didn't feel any fluctuations of Asta's promotion from inside the room when she was outside the room. Even Asta's breath seemed to have completely disappeared in the induction. But Asta has always been so mysterious, so she put aside her worries. There was no one in the room at this moment, only an empty bed. Asta, who had been lying on the bed, had come to the Hall of Stars. It was not difficult to achieve this step, and Asta in the past could do it, but it was far less secretive than entering through dreams. On the Hall of Stars, Hasta had already taken the potion needed to advance to Sequence 4 Lost Homelander. This was prepared using the Beyander characteristic of the Sequence 4 Fallen Earl of the Black Emperor path. To advance to the Hall of Stars, the Beyander characteristics of other Beyander paths can be used as the main potion. This is the characteristic of the stars. When Hasta took the corresponding potion on the Hall of Stars, he clearly felt that his body and mind were completely integrated with the Hall of Stars. This was the first time he had such a feeling. In the past, he always felt like a tenant of the Hall of Stars, but this time, he really felt that the Hall of Stars was his property and he was the owner of the Hall of Stars. At this moment, he seemed to be the real returnee of the stars. The entire Hall of Stars was in his palm, moving with his thoughts. When the potion began to digest, the entire Hall of Stars also showed obvious changes. It rose again, into the depths of the sky, into the boundless starry sky. The sky full of stars was even more at his fingertips. They were within the reach of his fingers. Hasta tried to reach out his hand, but was blocked by a transparent film. It was like a loyal guard, quietly guarding and not allowing anyone or any force to pass through here. After sensing quietly for a long time, Hasta vaguely guessed the origin of this transparent film. The initial barrier between the starry sky and the real world. Has the star hall risen to this position? Hasta's heart moved slightly. He was not surprised that the star hall would continue to rise, but he felt that the speed was too fast. He thought that he would have to break through to Sequence 2 or Sequence 0 before he could reach the same position as the current 6 true gods. If he continued at this speed, at Sequence 2 or Sequence 0, the star hall would break through the initial barrier and return to the starry sky. The initial barrier in front of him was not preventing him from continuing to rise, but the star hall he was controlling could only reach this position. If he wanted to leave the real world and reach the starry sky, he would have to wait until he was promoted to Sequence 2. This is like wanting to leave a planet and flying on the surface of a planet. These are two different concepts, and the power required is also very different. Hasta retracted his gaze from the starry sky and looked around at the kingdoms of the 6 true gods on the same level as himself.
He saw the kingdom of the goddess of night hidden in the darkness. The secret authority and her kingdom were also hidden, making it difficult to see what was going on. On the surface, chapters of the history of civilization evolution, as well as steel lumps such as warships and cannons, were surging. Dense yellow gears were hidden behind, pushing civilization forward in a farther direction. This was the kingdom of the god of steam and machinery. A fertile land covered with various plants, lush branches and leaves, countless branches entwined, a place of thriving scenery, was the kingdom of the mother goddess of the earth. Like a burning sun, but obviously gradually dimming, the kingdom of light with its doors closed at this moment was the kingdom of the eternal sun. The kingdoms of the Lord of Storms and the God of Knowledge and Wisdom also manifested with their own characteristics. The ruined country that had been torn apart and whose dim sky was gradually eroded by the night was once the kingdom of the God of War. Hasta looked at the kingdom of the six gods in an equal manner. There was no need to look up or open his eyes to see, their kingdom of God just appeared in front of him. I wonder if they can also see the existence of the Hall of Stars? They should not be able to see it, otherwise they would not be silent. It is so peaceful here, and there is nothing unusual. I also have the secret authority of the goddess of night, plus the status of the Hall of Stars. Unless I want to, they cannot see through the existence of the Hall of Stars. Just like before, if I had not manifested the Hall of Stars, they would not know that the stars were within the initial barrier. Appeared quietly, and then quietly amazed the gods? Hasta admired the kingdom of the six gods for a while, raised his head slightly, and his eyes passed through the initial barrier, and saw the scene outside the starry sky, with planets lined up neatly. What came into view were the familiar planets of water, gold, earth, fire, wood and earth. The only difference was that on these planets, there were foreign gods, some far away, and some with their entire faces on the surface of the earth. The initial barrier was like a glass cover. Hasta and his people were like fish living in a fish tank, and the outer gods were like greedy cats lying outside the glass cover. As soon as the glass cover disappeared, they would rush in and feast on it. The fallen mother goddess, the mother tree of desire, the superstar overlord, the primordial hunger, and other outer gods were watching every move here in their own unique way. I wonder if they can see the Hall of Stars through the initial barrier? Hasta just thought for a while, then retracted his gaze and became silent. He could feel that as he was promoted to Sequence 4 Lost Hometowner, some memories of his hometown began to dissipate. Gradually, he forgot his hometown, where he came from, where he was, and where he should go. Forgetting, losing, many things he had experienced in the past gradually dispersed and broke apart in this process, and then quietly and silently dissipated into the invisible. His current state was very much like the often said soul leaving the body, leaving his body, and as an objective outsider, he began to examine his memories of this life. Floating, lost, with nowhere to rely on, as if thrown into a blank snowfield, for a moment I didn't know what to do, and which direction to take next. Looking around, everything was blank and unfamiliar. He could only look up. The stars in the sky were still shining. They had been in the same position for thousands of years and had never changed. They fixed the veins of the starry sky and the direction he should go. No matter how the earth under his feet changes, he only needs to look up at the stars from time to time, and the road ahead will not deviate. The wanderer who lost his hometown could no longer remember the way home, and could only move forward in the direction guided by the stars. It was unknown how long it took for Hasta to gradually come back to his senses. He covered his heart with one hand, as if there was a piece missing there, no longer complete, and wanted to recall it, but there was only a whiteness. Loneliness, helplessness, the urgent need to fill the blank in the heart, but the urgency and sadness of not being able to find the right thing. All kinds of emotions formed an endless ocean that wrapped him tightly in it. He could only find a moment of peace by looking up at the starry sky and the stars that were shining. When he looked away, all kinds of emotions came like waves again, making his empty heart ache and sour. The Hall of Stars, the returner of the stars. Hasta sat quietly at the head of the long table, his confused and helpless eyes gradually calmed down. He stared at it until someone seemed to be calling his name, then he looked away and looked at the real world. The Hall of Stars is now located at the original barrier, overlooking the real world. As long as he wanted, He could easily see any place that was not blocked. His eyes passed through the long distance and fell on the place that called his name. It was a dark world without light, only the lightning that rushed past brought a flash of lightning from time to time. He looked closer, and those who seemed to be calling him were not calling his name, but calling himself the stars, the master of the stars, and the returner of the stars. That was also him, another identity different from his real self. He just looked down quietly, without responding or disturbing, just like admiring the ants moving on the ground. They, those strangers, were worshipping a statue devoutly, treating it as their incarnation. Hasta felt that it was not like a statue after just a glance from a distance, but he did not respond to their intentions. After looking for a while, he felt bored and moved his eyes away. His eyes left the Silver City and passed along the dark area where no one lived. There were some firelights scattered in the black background. They were the survivors of other god-forsaken lands. Their number and scale were not as large as the Silver City. Some were close to extinction, but the firelight of the inheritance had not been completely extinguished. Hasta's eyes were as calm as water, watching everything without sadness or joy, just like a bright moon that existed since ancient times. What happened on the ground was not enough to arouse his interest. Then, he saw Aemon, who hid his true body and walked outside only with his incarnation. Although Aemon had disguised and covered himself up, under the gaze of the stars, all his actions were in sight. He also saw the high-dimensional overlooker, who was wandering around the land of the god-forsaken land, enjoying the scenery along the way and playing games with Aemon. His eyes passed over them, and the giant king's court, which was the key to leaving the god-forsaken land, was also under his gaze. His eyes passed through the heavy and dusty gate and saw the truth hidden by the gods, the left hand of the ancient sun god, the vice-lord of heaven, the dark angel Sazriel. He was still sleeping, and in front of him, a stone slab was emitting the breath of chaos. It was a blasphemous stone slab stained with the power of the Chaos Sea. Hasta also just glanced at it and looked away. He had no intention of waking up Sazriel. If he wanted, he could even help Sazriel walk out of the dusty gate of the giant king's court. The golden ocean surrounded the giant king's court. It was the blood sprayed when the ancient sun god fell. His eyes quickly passed through the surging sea, and he saw ships sailing on the sea. The places where fights occurred from time to time were just two small black dots fighting in his eyes. The scenery on the sea was a bit amazing at first glance, but after a few more glances, it felt repetitive and boring. From the sea, following the direction of the sea breeze, he landed on the coastline and began to go deep inland. Ports and cities were spread out in the field of vision, and dense crowds of people were busy flowing in these residences, like black snakes crawling. Hasta's eyes stopped when he passed Punning Port. This place gave him a familiar feeling. He did see a familiar figure and a cat, Sharon and Azishara. Her and its names naturally emerged in his mind. After watching quietly for a while, Hasta's incomplete feeling in his heart seemed to be made up a little. He had once placed part of his heart on them, so even if the memory was vague, he could still feel it a little. Hasta thought so, and his gaze towards them softened, but his gaze still did not stay here, and continued to sweep inland along Punning Port. After looking for a long time, he did not know what he wanted to find, but simply repeated looking at the thing itself, looking at everything, and observing the operation of everything. This seemed to be his innate responsibility. Sky Eye Machine. Strange and familiar words came to his mind, which seemed to explain his current situation and feelings very well. After an unknown period of time, after scanning the entire continent, Hasta finally retracted his gaze. He had lowered his head and overlooked the entire real world. Now he should raise his head and cast his sights into the depths of the vast starry sky. Can't indulge in the starry sky. It seems that there is a voice reminding himself, is this worried that he will get lost in the endless starry sky? Why worry? Hasta was silent for a moment, and still retracted his gaze, just looking straight at the initial barrier in front of him. He suddenly felt bored and didn't know what to do. In the end, he just sat quietly in the Hall of Stars, letting his eyes wander. October 1st, is this a special holiday? Sitting in the Hall of Stars, letting time pass, Hasta suddenly felt something strange about this date. After thinking carefully for a while, he remembered what he should do on this day. It's time to hold the star conference every 2 months. Hastur's eyes swept across the starry sky above the Hall of Stars, and the chain of stars behind him swayed, then extended to the 5 stars in it. When the chain of stars was retracted, the lamp god, the mother tree of desire, the superstar master, the high-dimensional overlooker, and the original hunger appeared one by one in the Hall of Stars. When they arrived at the Hall of Stars, their hearts trembled slightly, and an unspeakable majesty enveloped the entire Hall of Stars, making them unconsciously want to obey. This feeling has never been experienced before. Even when they first stepped into the Hall of Stars, they did not have such a strong feeling. Today, the figures of the stars seemed to be much taller than before. He still sat quietly, and there was no other emotion flowing in his eyes, but the feeling revealed by his whole body could make them tremble. A kind of status suppression? Like the posture of a superior looking down on the inferior? They could not explain what kind of feeling it was, but one thing was certain: the state of the stars was better than before. The starry sky seemed to be closer to here. The mother tree of desire and other beings had their own thoughts, and even the lamp god, who always liked to talk and show off, rarely calmed down today. Otherwise, with his previous temperament, he would have joked with the new primordial hunger, or deliberately teased and mocked him. Primordial hunger did not have too many feelings. In his opinion, the stars should have been in this posture. Hastur just looked at them calmly, without the desire to speak. After a short silence, the primordial hunger consciously greeted the mother tree of desire and the high-dimensional overlooker. He was new here, so he had to show a little humility as a latecomer. As for the superstar overlord and the lamp god, he naturally skipped them, and he did it on purpose. He didn't like these two very much. The superstar overlord had a grudge against him. As for the lamp god, the son of chaos, he was too lazy to deal with him purely because he was very poor and mean. The lamp god, who was deliberately ignored, was furious all of a sudden. He first glanced at Hastur, and seeing that he didn't show any expression, but just watched calmly, he was less cautious. He began to join forces with the superstar overlord to target the primordial hunger, deliberately talking about some of his embarrassing things and revealing his bottom. Hey, your nature of eating everything will hurt you sooner or later. Yes, just like you, I was tricked into a wishing lamp by weirdness. Why didn't I know you had the habit of making wishes for people before? Son of chaos, how about changing your name to Lord of Wishes? Just like weirdness, you can be a follower of God. Primordial hunger, who had been silent for a long time, finally found a place to mock the god of light. After this set of combined punches, even the god of light could not help but be stunned for a long time. Superstar overlord consciously withdrew from the battlefield and admired the fluctuating expression of the god of light. After being mocked by primordial hunger, the god of light did not care that there were stars watching here, and began to attack primordial hunger in a hurry. Primordial hunger's mouth was a bit stupid. In addition to grasping the pain point between the god of light and weirdness, he did not know how to refute other aspects, so he hated the son of chaos who was chattering and mean. In the end, every time the god of light said something, he mentioned the lord of weirdness, which made the god of light very angry. Hastur just watched calmly. He suddenly felt that the so-called outer gods were not much different from those living on the ground in some aspects. They would also get angry, attack each other, start wars, sneer, and have all kinds of complex emotions like humans. It should be the other way around. It is the people on the ground who are like them. When there were no creatures like humans, they had been roaming the stars for countless years. The so-called people may be the product of the inadvertent enlightenment of a certain outer god. As the farce ended, the lamp god, who thought he had an absolute upper hand, raised his head slightly and glanced at the original hunger with contempt and the attitude of a winner. Facing his provocative and arrogant eyes, the original hunger just turned into the appearance of a planet, as if it had entered sleep mode. The lamp god snorted lightly, as if to say, "You think you want to argue with me?" After solving the problem of the original hunger, the lamp god set his sights on the superstar master who had just fled from the battlefield, and taunted him mercilessly. It was not until recently that I realized that your IQ was barely on par with the original hunger, and you were actually tricked by the eternal blazing sun. Having long anticipated that the lamp god would take advantage of this incident to make trouble, the superstar master said lightly. The victory between me and him has not yet been determined. The inflated confidence will only lead to destruction in the end. Hee, don't talk so nicely. You clearly fell into the trap, and finally turned to go with the flow. You were imprisoned in the wishing lamp. Is it also a way of going with the flow? Faced with the lamp god's difficulties, the superstar master just naturally led the topic to the Lord of Mystery, which was the only stain on the lamp god. The lamp god said coldly, Eternal Sun is not even worthy of carrying shoes for weirdness. Oh, when did you become so protective of weirdness? I'm just stating the facts. Me too. Facing the slippery superstar overlord, the lamp god felt that he had nowhere to start, and finally he could only retract his claws and teeth, and just kept cursing the Lord of Weirdness in his heart. Is this the Star Conference? Asta, who listened from beginning to end, felt that such a scene seemed a bit out of place with the Star Conference. Shouldn't they talk about something more grand? Why is it like a group of children who haven't grown up yet bickering with each other for fun? Asta looked at the boundless starry sky, looked at it seriously for a while, and seemed to understand the reason why they behaved like this.
Destroying a planet or witnessing some cosmic wonders are just very common things for them, as simple as eating and drinking. Discussing these issues is meaningless. Existences of the same level as themselves, even if they are just simple quarrels, are more interesting to them. Especially when seeing other beings being defeated, the mood will be even happier. When Hasta was thinking silently, the eyes of the high-dimensional overlooker came over. Stars, your recent condition seems to have improved a lot, and this place is closer to the starry sky. The starry sky is what my fingertips touch. Asta slowly stretched out his hand and pointed in front of him, and the starry sky rippled and swayed, like a wave brushing across the starry sky. Does this mean that the end of the world is closer? It was the mother tree of desire who spoke. Have you seen the initial barrier? While speaking, a transparent light shield separated the starry sky from the real world. Although there were many large and small cracks on the initial barrier, it was still strong because of the protection of the gods such as the goddess of night. The mother goddess of desire, the superstar overlord and other beings admired the seemingly fragile initial barrier through the hall of stars, and also saw the old days of the outer gods who coveted the outside of the earth. The greedy faces were about to completely cover the entire surface of the earth. The lamp god smiled and said proudly, Tisk, what an ugly face it is. It's a pity that it can't come in. Except for the stars, only he was inside the original barrier. Seeing that group of outer gods could only look at the world he was in, he felt particularly comfortable. No wonder they all disliked him. It turned out that they were jealous. The lamp god found a suitable reason for his annoyingness. The mother tree of desire, the superstar overlord, and the original hunger looked at each other. Although this was normal, they could see their hungry appearance that couldn't wait to break into the real world in the Hall of Stars, especially in front of the stars and the lamp god. This feeling was really shameful, but it was only for a moment. The word shame didn't mean much to them. They just didn't want the lamp god to find a reason to mock them. As for the stars, he was watching everything. The high-dimensional overlooker was also in a good mood. He had previously run away to hide in order to avoid the gaze of the stars. At this moment, the starry sky outside the earth did not look as ugly as he did. After a brief silence, the mother tree of desire, the superstar lord, and the primordial hunger had no interest in talking today, especially after seeing the ill-intentioned smirk of the lamp god and the meaningful gaze of the high-dimensional overlooker. Hasta glanced at them lightly and announced the end of this star meeting. After sending them away, Hasta sat alone in his seat again, his eyes calmly watching everything in front of him. He thought that he could sit like this until the next star meeting, until the end of the world, or until the end of the restart of the universe. He was like a reef on the seashore, watching the surging and roaring of the sea every day and night, and the waves that sometimes jumped high were just insignificant ripples. The starry sky is also a sea. In his eyes, there is not much difference between the two. In the old days of the outer gods, in his eyes, they were just waves with louder roars. Just sit there, letting time pass. Time, for him now, has no meaning. 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years. Such a length of time is too short compared to the entire universe and starry sky, and it is just a moment. Until someone called him again, he lowered his eyes slightly and looked at the place where the call came from. The people who called him were Sharon and the kitten named Azishara. Her name was Hastur, not the stars. Hastur just watched quietly, until his heart was touched. His eyes changed a little. Sharon in the field of vision, her expression was a little sad, and she was staring at an empty house in a trance. The kitten named Azishara lay softly on Sharon's shoulder, making intermittent meows weakly, and the sad emotion seemed to flow out of its eyes. Hastur still just looked calmly. His eyes followed Sharon and Azishara in the picture through day after day. Sharon in the field of vision, the sadness in her eyes was gone. The whole person was like a stone statue, looking through the window as if looking at something in the distance. In front of the window sill, Azishara lay quietly, occasionally looking up at the outside world, but every time she looked away in disappointment, her black and shiny hair also lost its former brightness and smoothness, becoming dry and rough. This is not good looking, and it is not suitable for it. It should lie on its back, exposing its soft belly, with its two little paws resting on the dried fish, tasting it with a satisfied look, and occasionally making a few happy meows. As time went by, many figures came and went in the room. The passage to the spirit world was torn, and first a mature and beautiful blonde woman came, talked to Sharon for a while, and touched her head with heartache. That day, Sharon's eyes were red for the first time, revealing a fragile and sad expression. The blonde woman stayed for a long time before leaving, and the days returned to a brief calm. Then the passage to the spirit world was torn again, and a fiery red bird flew out, chirping, and then landed on Sharon's shoulder, as if comforting something. The seemingly inconspicuous little firebird was an immortal bird with majestic wings and a huge body in Hastur's eyes, and it also wore a golden crown on its head. Grey Carey, the ancestor of the immortal bird, was a spirit world messenger who had signed a contract with him. To this day, this contract is still in effect, and he can easily drive him. But he didn't seem to need him anywhere. Wherever he looked, he could easily come and arrive, and he didn't need to use other beings to convey information for him. But Hastur did not tear up the contract unilaterally. He just watched quietly and let time pass. Soon, it was December 1st, and another star conference was held. During this period, many more people called his name. It was in a city called Backland. A man named Leonard had privately mentioned his name, and Marge, Greta, Grelant, Hugh, and Furs had all mentioned his name. A lady named Audrey was the one who mentioned his name the most among these people, and there was also Susie, the extraordinary dog beside her. They were still writing letters to him, but the letters were only sent to the empty house guarded by Sharon. From their private whispers and conversations, Hastur gradually pieced together the past when he had interacted with them, but those pasts were vague, and he had forgotten many specific story plots. The fragmented memories were gathering together bit by bit, and as time went by, the memories recovered more completely. He recalled many things in the past, but he still just watched quietly, and then held a new star meeting in silence. At the star meeting, no major events were discussed, but just some trivial things. The only interesting thing was that the original Hunger also wanted to send a clone into the real world. According to him, it was to throw the wishing lamp that imprisoned the lamp god into the stinking ditch, so that he could suffer a little. For his request, the high-dimensional overlooker expressed his willingness to help, and Hastur also nodded and helped him. For the outer gods who participated in the star meeting, as long as their requests were not too presumptuous, he was willing to meet their requests. This is an exchange. The more you pay now, the more you will gain in the future. The stars returned to their positions, not just an authority. The star meeting that is held every 2 months has ended again. Hastur feels more bored and empty inside, and needs new things to fill it. His time now, in addition to staring at everything in a daze, is waiting for the convening of the star meeting. Over and over again, monotonous and repetitive. He should go down and take a walk instead of staying in the Hall of Stars. He looked down at the real world and began to look for more interesting places. Punningport and Backland flashed through his mind, but he still did not choose to go there. Before the past memories were completely pieced together, he did not want to have too many new memories about those people. In the end, he chose a vast ice field. The scenery there was very suitable for him now.
He appeared on the vast ice field with just a slight thought in the Hall of Stars. Spatial distance did not exist for the Hall of Stars. What's more, when he was at Sequence 5, he had used the corresponding rules formulated by the Hall of Stars to possess the extraordinary ability of the apprentice path. What the traveler can do, he can also do, and he can go further than them. The vast ice field, a piece of flying snow, in which it is impossible to distinguish the alternation of day and night, the passage of time, here also loses its original meaning. When his footsteps came out of the ice field, there was an ice lake in front of him. The lake has not been completely frozen yet. In the distance, you can vaguely see some tender green grass emerging. This is the border of the ice field. Standing on the edge of the lake, looking at the clear water, my mind suddenly calmed down. Asta sat by the lake, staring at the lake covered by thin ice. There are many big fish in the lake. They are slender, neither fat nor thin. They live in clean places all year round. Their meat should be very delicate and may taste sweet. Just looking at it, Asta's stomach began to feel a little hungry. He also forgot when he last ate. After watching quietly for a while, Asta's right hand gently brushed along the lake surface. A fish about the same size as him jumped up from the lake, fell beside him, and lay motionless. Soon, the lakeside exuded the aroma of grilled fish. The best part of the whole big fish, the belly, was cut into small pieces and eaten raw. The head and tail of the fish were placed aside, and the other parts were used for grilling. Asta ate very slowly. When he had finished the whole fish except the head and the tail, the feeling of fullness in his stomach dispelled a lot of his confusion, and his mood improved a lot. When he continued to walk south from the lake, he came to a seashore with floating ice. There were many people here, and they were fishing for seals living nearby. Fishing for seals is a traditional festival that has been preserved here to this day. Asta's arrival did not cause much sensation. Many people come here every year to participate in the seal fishing festival. But the thin clothes and the clothes that were not warm at all still attracted the envy of many people. The temperature here is very low, especially at night, and urine will freeze. Most people try to wear warm clothes, such as warm furs of various animals. The bustle here did not make Asta stop, but when he was about to leave, someone called him. He was a middle-aged man with bronze skin, medium build, black hair and brown eyes, soft features, and a small black mole under his right ear. "Are you from Loen?" The middle-aged man came over to talk. "Your clothes have a distinct Loen style. I have lived there for many years. Except for the poor air quality, everything there is very good." "Are you Mr. Azek?" Asta's mind naturally popped up the name of the man in front of him. "Do you know me?" Azek looked at Asta curiously, and the more he looked, the more strange he felt. He came here alone to fish for seals, but he didn't expect to meet someone who knew him. Asta's eyes passed Azek and looked at the people who were busy preparing to fish for seals. "Is life here good? If you don't mind the extremely cold weather here. It's very quiet here, very suitable for a person to relax and be alone. Are you here because you have something on your mind?" After a brief exchange, Azek had seen the confusion in the heart of the young man in front of him. He seemed to have lost something, and then he was looking for something aimlessly. At night, there was light snow in the sky, and stars were hanging on the sky, shining brightly, and even the wind and snow could not cover their light. Hastur and Azek sat in the open air, looking up at the stars and talking. "The destination of the soul, this is a very good question. I have lost my past memories and have been actively looking for them. Finally, I found my memories back, but found that those memories were not as good as I thought. Do you regret it? No, whether it is painful or beautiful memories, only when you find them back can they truly belong to you. Memories, everything in the past, are traces of a person's existence." Hastur did not continue to answer, but just looked up at the starry sky above his head. "You should also find your past memories back. There should be no blank in your heart." Azek patiently enlightened the young man in front of him and told him a lot of stories and experiences about himself. Late at night, when the light of the stars disappeared, Hastur also disappeared. Traveler, Azek, who watched Hastur disappear for no reason, was briefly absent-minded. Just now, under his eyes, the young man who was listening to him just for a moment suddenly disappeared. Azek sat alone for a long time. When the day broke and the noise of people began, He also joined the SEAL fishing team with a smile. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta still sat quietly, his eyes swept over those who had said his name, and the fragments of memory continued to reorganize. December 15th, only half a month away from the new year. In Punning Port, in the room where Hasta was in seclusion and promotion, Sharon stood in front of the window sill, quietly looking at the direction of the harbor street. It was approaching the new year, and the people living here began to prepare for the new year early, which was much more lively and festive than in the past.
Especially this year, the pirates were driven away and the business was booming. As long as the people living here were diligent enough, they could make a lot of money.
Meow. Azishara lay listlessly in front of the window sill, just glanced at the busy street, and then retracted her gaze. Although many stalls were selling fragrant dried fish, they could no longer attract her attention. Dong dong dong. Someone knocked on the door, and Azishara was too lazy to even look up. After a while, the knocking stopped, and several letters from Backland were neatly placed at the door. There were more than 50 letters that had not been opened. Keys, who delivered the letter, took a look at the still closed door, sighed in disappointment and left. 3 months have passed since the Earl left. Although there were some discussions within the Yellow Monk organization regarding this matter, under the command of Madame Lisa, they still conscientiously carried out what they were supposed to do. As for the affairs of Punning Port and other ports, they were all handled by him. Only when encountering some major events, he stayed temporarily and waited for the Earl to come back to deal with it. Now there is only one trouble. The investigators of the 3 major churches have been unable to see the Earl for a long time. In addition, with the instigation of some people with ulterior motives, news has come from Backland that the Earl has successively murdered 2 Grand Dukes of Southwell for his own selfish interests. The new king of the Kingdom of Lowen, Govington II, has withdrawn the previous appointment of the Earl to assist the coastal defense line, and asked the Earl to return to Backland before the new year this year to report. Otherwise the Earl's title will be abolished and he will be charged with treason. This matter has spread in Backland, and the Niggin family and Earl Hall, who had pleaded for the Earl, have also been suppressed, and many rights have been taken back, sitting on the bench. But no matter how the situation outside changes, Punning Port still maintains absolute stability, and no one can shake the peace here. The members of the Yellow Monks have also done a lot of things to counter, but many things have not been decided by the Earl, so they are bound to do things. Keyes originally wanted Miss Sharon to handle these things on behalf of the Earl, but Miss Sharon was not interested in these things at all, just asked people not to disturb and wait for the Earl to come back. Outside Punning Port, the investigators of the 3 major churches have all gathered together. 3 months is enough for them to investigate many things clearly. Now, all the spearheads are pointed at the Earl of Hasta Campbell, but the strange thing is that since they came to South Wales, the Earl of Hasta Campbell has not shown up, as if he has disappeared. Do you think that Earl Hasta Campbell was entangled by the extraordinary phenomenon of Punning Port, or has he been killed? Someone put forward such a hypothesis, but it was quickly rejected by others. Most investigators are more convinced that Count Hasta Campbell is the real culprit behind this series of events, and now he is just deliberately avoiding it. Ask the church for help. If the situation is serious, just wipe out the entire Punning Port. But there are so many ordinary residents living here. Just say it's revenge from pirates. The future of this port is easily decided in a few words. Punning Port is really too scary. Some people are reluctant, but Punning Port gives them a feeling that is too weird and too scary. During this period, they have taken many measures, but they have not been able to glimpse the secret of Punning Port. It seems that there is a thick layer of fog covering it. The members from the Storm Church can't help but think of Bansi at the beginning. At that time, Bansi had abnormal phenomena and the investigation team was involved. In the end, it was the Lord of Storms who came down to wipe out Bansi and completely solve this matter. If this situation continues, Punning Port will sooner or later have gods descend. Is this South Wales? The weather is indeed much better than Backland. The breeze is cool and refreshing, not as dry as Backland. A steam train from Backland was parked quietly at the South Wales steam train platform. The 2-person and a dog team came out of the steam train carriage, and while enjoying the scenery of South Wales, they walked outside the platform and took a carriage to Punning Port. When they waited for the carriage and sat in the carriage, Furs looked at the blonde girl sitting next to her with a very resentful look. "Miss Audrey, you are really crazy. You actually left Backland secretly like this. Aren't you and Susie still with me?" Audrey, who was lifting a corner of the curtain, retracted her hand and reached out to touch Susie, who was lying at her feet, with a faint smile on her face. In fact, she felt crazy herself. When she realized that something was wrong in South Wales, and Mr. Asta was suspected of disappearing, she suddenly had the idea of coming to South Wales. Of course, she left Backland under the pretext of visiting her second brother Alfred in South Wales. Before leaving, she deliberately found Hugh and Furs. Hugh had other things to do, and she didn't want to leave Backland, so Furs had to accompany her on this trip. With Furs's company, she became much bolder, and she and Susie were promoted to sequence 6 hypnotists during this period, and their strengths were greatly enhanced, enough to deal with most situations. If she really faced danger, she could ask Mr. Fool for help, and Furs could ask the stars for help, and her safety was guaranteed. "I regret leaving Backland now." Furs sighed. Furs, think about the reward of 1,000 gold pounds. Audrey's words were tempting, and Furs fell silent with just one sentence.
She and Hugh still couldn't get rid of poverty. Under the attack of Miss Audrey's gold pound ability, her inner defense line was finally broken. Woof. Susie also called out, which meant that she had to work after getting paid.
Furs didn't say anything else, but just spread out the map of South Wales she had bought, found the route to Pennine Port on it, and made corresponding plans. Although she was also not good at doing these things, she was better than Audrey, who had never traveled far. While planning the route for this trip to South Wales, she vaguely heard the whispers between Miss Audrey and Susie. "The main idea is, Susie, we can finally go out and take risks. Mr. Hasta has helped us with so many things in the past. Now it's our turn to save Mr. Hasta." Susie always barked cooperatively. Furs wanted to say something about the dangers of venturing outside, but in the end he kept silent, thinking that he had to do more this time in order to protect Miss Audrey. Pennine Port, in a villa. Alfred has returned here to settle down since the death of Prince Leonard. He originally wanted to find an opportunity to remind Hasta to pay attention to the danger from Backland, but unexpectedly discovered that Hasta disappeared. No one could be found at all, and Hasta's butler took care of daily matters. In the letter sent from Backland a few days ago, Earl Hall mentioned that his sister Audrey would be visiting during this time and asked him to take good care of Audrey. But before he saw Audrey, someone was entrusted by Audrey to come to him with a message, saying that she had gone to visit Mr. Hasta first, so that he did not have to worry about her safety. Alfred could only sigh at this, and then went to the study to write a letter to Earl Hall, who was in Backland and was worried about his beloved daughter, so that he could feel at ease. As for Audrey's safety, he is not too worried. In Pennine Port, Hasta's words are the only purpose. As long as Audrey says that she is Hasta's friend, she will not meet him here. Danger.
On the other side, outside the gate of the house where Asta lived, Audrey arrived with Forsey and Susie. They asked someone to report, and then after waiting for a while, they were welcomed into the house. Keyes personally came out to greet the reception, and at the same time went to inform Miss Sharon. "Is Mr. Hasta not back yet?" After sitting quietly for a while, Audrey asked directly. "My Lord Earl went out for fun and has not come back until now." "Approximately when will you be back?" "I don't know. As a qualified housekeeper, you should not inquire too much about the master's whereabouts."
"Then do you know how to contact him?" "Not sure." No matter what question Audrey asked, as long as Hasta was involved, Keyes tried his best to avoid the topic and never mentioned the mysterious disappearance of his Lord Count. After asking to no avail, Audrey thought for a while, blinked her beautiful eyes, and winked at Susie, who was lying aside. Susie understood, stood up quickly, and suddenly barked a few times, completely attracting Keyes' attention. A faint light flashed in Audrey's eyes, and her originally clear and elegant voice seemed to be so bewitching that people couldn't help but fall deeply into it. Her hypnosis skills can finally be put to use. With Susie as cover, she should be able to succeed against the unsuspecting butler Keyes. Where did Mr. Hasta go? Keyes felt that his head was empty, and he spoke before thinking. "I don't know. The Earl has been missing for more than 3 months, and we have been unable to find his whereabouts." Yeah, Audrey, your hypnosis was successful. Sure enough, a real hypnotist needs a golden retriever assistant to cooperate with him. Then do you know why Mr. Hester disappeared? Audrey leaned forward slightly, her bright eyes seemed to have ripples in them. I don't know. We are just guessing that it may be related to the Earl's promotion to a higher rank. After answering 2 questions in succession, Keyes showed a struggling look on his face, his eyelids moved and his brows furrowed. Audrey showed a satisfied smile, sat upright, lightly snapped her fingers, and then looked at Forsey beside her. It seems that Mr. Hester is really not at home. Let's visit another day. Okay. Forsey, who felt baffled, could only answer Audrey's question. Keyes, who had regained consciousness, first glanced at the golden retriever that had stopped barking, and then frowned and stared at Audrey for a while, but found nothing unusual. He could only suppress the strangeness in his heart and said politely, "If the Earl comes back, I will tell the Earl about your visit today in time. Sorry to bother you." Audrey stood up and was about to take Susie and Forsey away when a little black cat suddenly arrived with elegant steps. Azishara. Audrey, who caught a glimpse of the little black cat, spoke in surprise and waved, trying to attract Azishara's attention. Woof. Susie also started to say hello in the doggy style. Azishara just glanced at them, then turned around and walked deeper into the house. After taking a few steps, it glanced back again, signaling for them to follow its pace. Keyes coughed dryly and said, "Since Lord Azishara has something to ask you, then you can just go ahead." Azishara is the little black cat closest to Hester, and her status is very unusual. In order to show respect, they also call Azishara an adult. Could it be that Mr. Hester sent Azishara to pick him up? With a thought in Audrey's mind, she led Susie and Forsey to follow Azishara deeper into the house. Along the way, Audrey opened her mouth to chat with Azishara, but Azishara did not respond. This made Audrey a little regretful. When she went out today, she should have brought some dried fish. In this case, she should have can attract Azishara's attention. After twists and turns, Azishara led Audrey and others to the door of Hester's room. The door had been opened, and Sharon was the only one inside. Meow. Azishara yelled, trotted 2 steps, and then jumped into Sharon's arms. It was Sharon who asked it to go out to pick up people just now, otherwise it wouldn't be too lazy to move. What a delicate, beautiful girl. Audrey's eyes sparkled when she saw Sharon for the first time. Although she was very interested in Sharon, who was like an exquisite doll, she still maintained her elegant posture and didn't look too closely at her. This should be the ultimate doll that Mr. Moon wants to pursue, right? Forsey was also amazed in her heart, staring at Sharon with unblinking eyes. Sharon. Sharon didn't pay attention to their curious looks and simply said her name. Originally she didn't want to deal with outsiders, but just now, 008 suddenly jumped in front of her and wrote on a blank piece of paper. Audrey Hall, an old friend from Backland, seems to be related to the owner. There is an unusual relationship. This sentence aroused some curiosity in her. Isn't it an ordinary relationship? Sharon admitted that she was a little concerned about this issue, so she asked Azishara to invite people to see her. When she was in Backland, she had heard about the reputation of Miss Audrey, who was called Backland's most dazzling gem. I saw it with my own eyes today, and it really matched the description of her in the rumors. She has the beauty and elegance of an aristocrat and the innocence of a little girl. Just seeing her like this will easily attract your attention. Audrey, I am a friend of Mr. Hester. Forsey, he is also a friend of Mr. Hester. After the brief introduction, the scene became quiet for a while. Sharon simply wanted to see Audrey and had no intention of talking. Audrey, on the other hand, upheld the elegance of the aristocracy and waited patiently for the other party to speak first. According to her original approach, when the other party didn't speak, she would take the initiative to give the other party a step down, but today, she suddenly didn't want to do that. Finally, Forsey asked directly, "Miss Sharon, why did you come to us here for something? You can leave now." Sharon's calm reply made Forsey's face almost freeze. This was the first time she met someone who spoke like this. He was so good-looking and beautiful, but his words were so heartless. Miss Sharon, you came to us, just to take a look at us?" 4C no longer knew how to continue this topic, and looked at the thoughtful Miss Audrey for help. What is the relationship between Miss Sharon and Mr. Hastur? Audrey asked curiously. Sharon did not answer directly, but gently stroked Azishara lying in her arms, which seemed to answer something. 4C had already opened his mouth slightly, with an expression on his face that was indeed true. This little black cat only likes to be close to Mr. Hastur. It doesn't pay much attention to other people. Even Miss Audrey failed to establish a good relationship with it. Miss Sharon, who looks like a very beautiful doll in front of her, is so close to Azishara and has a different status in Mr. Hastur's territory. The relationship between her and Mr. Hastur is definitely not simple. Good friend? It should be said that it is more suitable for lovers. Audrey's pretty brows frowned slightly, and she looked Sharon up and down again, her eyes a little more serious.
Miss Sharon, how did you and Mr. Hastur know each other? Why have I never heard him mention your existence?
Although Audrey said this with a smile, the aggression contained in her words made 4C consciously take a small step back, leaving space for Miss Audrey and Miss Sharon. He and I have nothing to do with anyone else. Sharon still spoke calmly.
Is Miss Sharon Mr. Hastur's lover? Audrey's direct question made 4C, who was standing behind her, widen her eyes. This was the first time she had seen such an aggressive Miss Audrey. No, Sharon responded calmly. The smile on Audrey's face grew wider. Then Miss Sharon should be Mr. Hastur's friend in the mysterious world, a comrade who supports and helps each other, right? Almost. Then Miss Sharon, can you tell me where Mr. Hastur is now?
Cannot. There was no disappointed expression on Audrey's face, she just smiled and said, since Mr. Hastur is not here today, we will leave first. Sharon didn't speak, just watched them leave calmly. On the desktop, 008, who had been pretending to be dead for a while, began to write furiously on the blank paper as if he had spied some big secret. Oh my god, what did I see that I could have watched too? Miss Audrey, Backlund's dazzling gem, and Miss Sharon, the master's most trusted comrade, the first communication between them actually started in this way.
Who will the smart, wise, handsome master end up with in the end? It's really curious.
When Sharon's eyes glanced over, 008 wrote the last sentence. A war without smoke between women is really exciting. After looking at Sharon quietly for a while, her eyes became colder at a speed visible to the naked eye. 008 shuddered all over and hurriedly wrote on the still blank paper. I only believe in Miss Sharon, he is the most suitable person to spend the rest of his life with his master. No matter how shining Backlund's gems are, they can't compare to years of personal companionship. This is an undoubted fact. Although 008 showed amazing survival instincts at the last moment, it was eventually taken back by Sharon and locked up in the pencil case. Sharon was also thoughtful enough to put the Book of Prophecy that had been accompanying it recently on the bookshelf where it could only look at it longingly. After doing all this, Sharon continued to stand in front of the window sill, looking deeply at the distant scenery, but her mood was a little wavering. When Audrey walked out of the door of Asta's house, the smile on her face disappeared and was replaced by a solemn look of thinking. 4C glanced at Audrey's face and asked cautiously, Miss Audrey, are you worried about Mr. Hastur's whereabouts? Well, he is indeed not an easy person to deal with. Audrey replied softly subconsciously, but she quickly realized it and added. Mr. Hastur's whereabouts are unknown, which is really worrying, especially now. The royal family has been deliberately guiding this matter. Xiao is right, the members of the Augustus family are not good people. They always deliberately target and kill kind and upright nobles, 4C said angrily. Audrey just hummed, obviously not very interested in this topic. The two of them and the dog walked along the street for a while, and 4C suddenly asked, Miss Audrey, where are we going next? My second brother Alfred, he lives not far from here in South Wales. Audrey said, telling a specific location, and then stopped a carriage to go there. 4C sat opposite Audrey, looking at Audrey who was obviously worried, but hesitated to speak. In the evening, Audrey and 4C arrived at her second brother's large villa. Alfred had already prepared a room for her. At the end of dinner, Alfred asked them about whether they saw Hastur today. Hearing that they had returned without success, Alfred smiled and said, This is normal. Many people wanted to find Hasta during this period, but they failed. Maybe he is no longer in South Wales. Audrey did not discuss this topic in depth. She was currently only more interested in Sharon. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta, who had been paying attention to Sharon, completely witnessed the meeting between Sharon and Audrey. There was something strange in my heart, and I couldn't tell what the specific emotion was. But what he was sure of was that this emotion was not happiness, but more like a fear of losing control of something, panic. It was just an ordinary meeting and a simple conversation. Is there anything noteworthy about it? Sharon, Audrey. When these two names are pronounced together, the strange feeling becomes stronger, and some related memories are beginning to return. The returning memories gradually fill the blank in the heart. Hasta sat alone in the Hall of Stars, receiving fragmented memories while looking at Sharon and Azishara leaning on each other, and the strange feeling in his heart became stronger and stronger. The gradually completed memories were so clear, but they made him feel strange. Are the recovered memories still the original memories? Can a memory have the same touch twice? It's difficult. It's just like watching a movie. One is your original memory, and the other is the clip played on the movie screen. Even if the memory and the clip overlap, the feeling will be completely different. Not strange, very calm. This is how Hasta feels when facing those gradually emerging memories. In comparison, watching Sharon and Azishara at the moment touched him more, because what he experienced at this moment was a brand new memory, a memory that belongs to him now. Although he does not exist in the other's memory at this moment. Maybe I should go and see it. Hasta watched for a long time, and the idea of going down to experience it personally emerged in his heart, trying to touch the memories of the past. He raised his eyes and scanned the stars. The scene was no different from the past. No matter how beautiful such a scene was, it would be boring to watch it for thousands of years. He lowered his eyes again and looked into the house where he was missing. With a thought, he suddenly descended with the power of the Hall of Stars. He stood behind Sharon, looking at Sharon who was silently looking out the window like a puppet. Just watching quietly, his irritable heart began to calm down. His arrival was so sudden that Sharon didn't react at the first time. It was Azishara who suddenly pricked up her ears, stood up and meowed. Meow? Azishara took 2 steps in the direction of Hasta, opened her mouth slightly, and then stretched out her front paws to rub her eyes hard, thinking that this should be a dream. Sharon, who was disturbed, turned around and looked at the person who suddenly appeared in her field of vision. Her body was slightly stiff, her eyes were blank, her mind was full of emotions, and she opened her mouth and finally said, "You're back." Sharon. Hasta said this name that should be very familiar with it with difficulty, and then lowered his eyes to look at the little black cat who had come to his feet and was looking up at him obediently, Azishara. Meow. The familiar voice finally made Azishara sure that the person in front of her was the master she was waiting for. She jumped up and wanted to jump into Hasta's arms like before, but Hasta did not open his arms to catch it. He just looked at its actions curiously, and Azishara fell back to the ground. Its eyes were full of disbelief, and it came forward again, sniffed carefully, and did not smell the smell of other kittens. But why did it feel that today's master was a little strange? Hasta ignored Azishara's complicated mood. His eyes looked at Sharon, the girl with a light golden bun and blue eyes. The emotions in her eyes were too complicated, so that he could not fully understand them at once. Finally, Sharon, whose joy overwhelmed other emotions, looked at Hasta again, nodded and said lightly, "That's good." After saying that, she turned around, and her slightly thin figure continued to look out the window. Her slightly trembling body showed that her mood was far from as indifferent as she had just shown. Hasta just looked at her calmly, without any other actions, although his heart was also touched. Meow? Azishara looked at her master with disgust. Is it time to be silent now? Even a cat like her knew that the most important thing now was to comfort Miss Sharon. It would be best if they were like the lovers who reunited after a long separation in the stage play, hugging Miss Sharon from behind, wrapping their arms around her waist, rubbing their ears together, and telling each other about their longing for each other during this period of time. But in the end, Azishara was disappointed. The master who came back today was more like a piece of wood than the puppet like Miss Sharon. Just standing quietly, looking at Miss Sharon's back, as if recalling something.
Just when it couldn't bear it any longer and was about to remind him, the owner and its sight disappeared instantly.
Its eyes widened, and it quickly looked around, but it didn't find any trace of the owner.
His arrival today was like a bubble, coming quickly and dissipating quickly.
Meow? Azishara made a confused and sad meow, and it felt that the owner was becoming more and more unfamiliar. Sharon, who was trying to suppress the various feelings in her heart, looked back calmly, looked at the place where Hasta left, was stunned for a long time, and then returned to normal, restrained all her emotions and fell into deep thought. Meow. Azishara came over, rubbed Sharon's black court dress, raised her head, and meowed for a while.
The general idea was to comfort Miss Sharon and plead for her owner who suddenly left. Sharon listened for a while, squatted down, picked up a Shara, stroked her little head, and looked out the window again. There was a faint sadness flowing in her blue eyes. Hasta did not go far. He just took one step from the room to the outside of the house, and then was stopped by Lady Lisa. "Lord God's envoy, you are finally back." Lady Lisa's cloudy eyes seemed to see that Hasta was not right, and she said, "Did Lord God's envoy lose something? Is it the sequelae of successful promotion?" "A follower of the Yellow King," Hasta just said lightly, took one step, and the whole person passed Lady Lisa and walked away. "Apprentice extraordinary path, traveler's ability?" Mrs. Lisa stared at Hasta's back as he left, and she couldn't help but make associations in her mind. The extraordinary path that Lord God's envoy took at the beginning was obviously the Black Emperor path. At this critical moment of being promoted to Sequence 4, did he jump to the non-adjacent apprentice path? The result of doing this is either madness or loss of control, but Lord God's envoy's appearance is not between the two. He looks more like he has lost something and is now trying to find it back. After thinking for a while, Mrs. Lisa found keys and asked him to send someone to pay close attention to Lord God's envoy's every move to prevent Lord God's envoy from having an accident if something is wrong. Although Keyes was shocked by the news of Lord Earl's return, he quickly suppressed all the strangeness in his heart and began to send people to deal with the matter. The streets of Punningport were very lively because of the approaching New Year. Various stores launched discount banners to attract tourists. Asta walked aimlessly on the street, feeling the noise that was different from the Hall of Stars, and gradually recovered the fragments of memory from the calls of the Earl. This port became brilliant and lively because of his arrival. He was like a ghost different from this world, walking through the crowded streets and the dazzling shops. He didn't stop until someone called his name. It was a lady wearing a beige long dress with ruffled collar and slightly curly brown hair. Miss Salted Fish. This was the first name that came to Asta's mind, and then Miss Furs. "Mr. Asta, it's really you." Furs put the goods in his hand back on the stall, shouted excitedly, and then shouted to a shop selling Punningport specialties on the street, "Ms. Audrey, I met Mr. Asta." Her voice was not small, and even the people nearby looked over. When they saw Asta's appearance, they saluted from a distance in tacit understanding, and then retracted their gazes and left. Count Hasta Campbell is the savior of Punningport, which is recognized by the residents of Punningport. Following Furs's call, a golden retriever rushed out of the store first, followed by a blonde girl with blue eyes, who was slightly lifting the hem of her light green dress and obviously quickening her pace. Looking at the combination of a person and a dog in his sight, Asta's mind popped up another word: Susie the fantasy dog and her breeder Miss Audrey. "Mr. Asta." Audrey's face was filled with a bright smile, like a finely carved gem shining in the sun, making it difficult for people to look away from her. Woof! A loud and powerful bark was the majesty of the fantasy dog that could not be ignored. Furs, who first discovered Asta, naturally gave up the main conversation position to Miss Audrey, who was walking anxiously and had a little sweat on her forehead. "Mr. Asta, it's great to see you here." Audrey's happy and joyful mood, which made Asta feel inexplicably better. "Audrey, Susie, Furs." Asta looked at the two people and the dog in front of him, nodded, and after a slight gesture, he took a step forward, and the whole person passed them far away, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Furs' eyes were wide open. Why did this extraordinary ability just now look familiar? Could it be that Mr. Asta and I have the same extraordinary path? Mr. Asta.
Audrey's excitement quickly subsided, and finally frowned slightly and waved her little fist. Mr. Asta's situation is not right. Susie, it's our turn to save Mr. Asta.
Woof. Susie nodded in agreement very seriously. Miss Audrey, do you see anything? Furs asked curiously. She didn't notice too many problems. Blank mind, confused mood, lost lamb. Audrey concluded. Okay. Furs didn't really understand the meaning of this sentence, but seeing Miss Audrey's serious look, she was convinced in her heart. It's a good start to meet Mr. Hasta so soon. Audrey's lips slightly raised, and she took Susie back to the store to buy some local specialties and send them back to Backland, so that Earl Hall would not worry too much about her safety. As for Mr. Hasta's matter, as long as he is still alive, there is a solution. And Mr. Hasta looks very healthy, but he has some mental problems. Outside Pennine Harbor, the Trigod Church investigators who had been waiting in the outer area thought that today would be another fruitless day. Unexpectedly, they saw the figure of Count Hasta Campbell leaving Pennine Harbor. They were shocked and hurriedly surrounded him, wanting to seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Unfortunately, they completely lost Hasta after following him for a while, and didn't even see his shadow again. Don't doubt it anymore. This Count Hasta Campbell is definitely a powerful Beander. Judging from the Beander ability he just showed, he is likely to be an Beander of the Apprentice Path, and is very likely to be a Sequence 5 traveler. It's really hard to imagine that he is obviously not very old, but he can get to this point. There are always some people who are the darlings of fate, unlike us, who just live in the world to make up the numbers. Several investigators sighed for a while, and then sent the latest news back to Backland, waiting for the latest instructions for the next step. Before their news was delivered to Backland, Hasta had already arrived in Backland. In those broken memories, Backland, the city of hope, was the starting point of his life and the beginning of all stories. His appearance did not attract the attention of others until he returned to his home according to the location in his memory and met Butler Neal, then he had some memories about it. Mr. Earl, why did you come back suddenly? Butler Neal first spoke in surprise, then quickly looked around and lowered his voice and said, Mr. Earl, you shouldn't come back alone. It's too dangerous for you here. You should leave Backland as soon as possible. Why? Hasta asked calmly. This is his home. Why does he need to leave his home? The royal family has sent someone to send a message saying that you will be charged with treason. Butler Neal lowered his voice very low, and at the same time led Hasta to the more secret study on the second floor to avoid too many people discovering that his Lord Earl had returned to Backland. Treason. Hasta's eyes showed a little confusion. Why didn't he have a sense of belonging to this country? There was not even a single memory of this. Yes, there have been rumors circulating in Backland recently that you killed the 2 Grand Dukes of Southwell. Butler Neal spoke earnestly, and once again hoped that Hasta could leave Backland as soon as possible and find a place to hide so as not to be discovered by the people of the Lowen royal family. Hasta just stood quietly, thinking seriously for a while, and nodded. I killed them. He remembered that the deaths of the 2 Grand Dukes of Southwell were related to him, but he didn't remember what their names were and what happened. Ah. Butler Neal was stunned, his hands and feet were cold, and he looked at the young Earl in front of him in disbelief. Hasta didn't say anything else, and his eyes swept around the study, and then he left here, walked along the corridor on the second floor, and came to the bedroom where he used to live, and stayed alone for a while. Soon, there was a noisy sound of footsteps near the door. It was the police spies squatting around the house. Seeing Hasta's return, they immediately sent a large number of police to catch the criminal who killed the 2 Grand Dukes of Southwell. When they rushed into the house and searched around for a while, they could not find Hasta. Butler Neal, who had recovered from the shock just now, was relieved to see that they did not find the Earl. He was ready to come forward to solve the matter, but was taken directly to the police station for investigation. In the police station, although Butler Neal's hair was white and his face looked old, he still answered the questions neither humble nor arrogant, and ignored the verbal threats of the police. I reiterate again that I have not seen Earl Hasta Campbell today, and I don't know where he went. Butler Neal repeated what he had just said. Ha, do you think our people are all blind? And the other maids have confessed that today, just now, the criminal named Hasta had briefly appeared. The police officer in charge of the interrogation slammed the table heavily, and the loud bangs, combined with the dark environment around, were very scary. Butler Neal raised his eyelids slightly. Just because they have seen it, it doesn't mean that I have seen it too. My eyes will never be wrong. Old man, it seems that you don't want to live anymore. Butler Neal just smiled and said, it is a virtue to stick to your post. I am just on the right path. As long as Earl Hasta Campbell does not dismiss him for a day, he will be the butler of the Campbell family. When the interrogating police on the opposite side wanted to say something, a small meteor fell vertically and hit the police station steadily, causing a huge explosion. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Butler Neal's figure disappeared in the dilapidated police station. In the suburbs, Asta put Butler Neal down and whispered, "From now on, you are free." Butler Neal, who was still in shock, took a long time to come back to his senses. Hearing Asta's words, he just coughed lightly, smiled and shook his head and said, "My Lord Earl, I have already advanced next year's salary. Even if you want to fire me, you have to wait until after next year." No need to do that. Butler Neal did not continue the topic, but asked Asta to pay attention to the Augustus family of the Lowen royal family. Recently, many old nobles in Backland have suffered unfair treatment. The persecution instigated by the Lowen royal family has destroyed their families and finally replaced by emerging nobles. Mr. Earl, you must take good care of yourself. Butler Neal left after leaving the last words. Augustus family. Asta frowned slightly. He didn't like this family very much. After waiting for a while, Asta did not continue to walk on this land, but returned to the Hall of Stars. When his eyes fell on Backland again, he naturally looked at the palace where the Augustus family was located. Destroy it, it's a bit annoying. Asta looked up at the starry sky. In addition to the planets, there were countless meteorites. He only needed to pull a little bit to make the meteorites break through the atmosphere and turn into a punishment from heaven. Because the starry sky is his kingdom of God. December 26th. As the new year was about to begin, a strange phenomenon occurred in the sky late at night. A meteor fell from the sky and hit the Lowen royal palace squarely. The huge and majestic palace complex was completely turned into a devastated land, leaving countless meteorite craters on the ground. What was even more amazing was that ordinary residents living near the palace were not affected, and even slept soundly that night. Many people did not know that there was a meteor shower last night until they woke up the next day. The meteor shower that night was called the Night of Star Wrath by the residents of Backland. It was a divine punishment specially sent down by the gods because they were dissatisfied with the recent actions of the Lowen royal family. The rumor became more and more intense, and finally Covington too had to stand up and confess to the gods for this matter. Unfortunately, the gods did not accept his confession, and threw another extremely insulting fire meteor at him, blowing up the platform where he was giving a speech. This incident undoubtedly confirmed all kinds of rumors and speculations, seriously damaged the dignity of the Lowen royal family, destroyed the prestige of King Covington II, and collapsed the positive image that was originally accumulated because of the victory in the war. Waste. What divine punishment. This is clearly man-made. Is there no one from the Church of the Night, the Church of the Storm, and the Church of Steam and Machinery who can stand up to solve this matter? In a new palace that was temporarily built, King Covington II was furious in the study. What meteor shower? This is clearly someone using his extraordinary ability to pretend to be God's will to accomplish this. In the mysterious world, there are many Sequence 2 angels who can do this. For example, the Sequence 2 natural disasters of the Storm Path, the Sequence 2 disaster witches of the Witch Path, the Sequence 2 miracle masters of the Fortune Teller Path, and so on. According to the speculation of the Augustus family's extraordinary people, these things are most likely caused by the natural disasters of the Storm Path. But the Storm Church firmly denied this matter, saying that this matter has absolutely nothing to do with their Storm Church. The Augustus family did not accept their explanation. Backland is a place where the gods are watching. If you want to complete a natural disaster of this scale above Backland, you can't hide it from the three gods who are watching here. Otherwise, Backland would have been destroyed by the High Sequence extraordinary people long ago. But the natural disaster still came, which means that this matter may be tacitly approved by the three gods, at least the Lord of Storm must know about it. After the incident, the Church of the Three Gods did not actively deal with the matter, but kept making excuses. This further confirmed the speculation of the members of the Augustus family. But without the true gods sitting in front of them, they did not dare to question the three true gods directly, and could only swallow this breath silently. Because once they fell out with the Church of the Three Gods, not only would the Augustus family's ruling power over the kingdom of Loan be shaken, but the war with the Fussic Empire would also be fundamentally reversed. In order to calm this matter, Covington too became much quieter, and at the same time slowed down the strategy against some old nobles. Above the grey fog, although Klein was overseas, he also learned about the recent events in Backland through his own channels. There is still some time before the Tarot Club convenes, and he is thinking about how to answer questions about Backland later. This kind of thing must be prepared first, and only when you have a plan in mind can you deal with various possible questions from the Tarot Club members. The Day of Star Wrath, why does it seem like the work of the stars? Why not put all the recent events in Backland on the stars? Anyway, he is so mysterious and unpredictable, and anything is possible. Klein thought seriously for a long time, then waited for the time to summon the Tarot Club members to come to the meeting. Mr. Fool, good afternoon. Audrey greeted all the Tarot Club members naturally. Her energetic voice was like a ray of sunshine that tore through the gray sky, making people feel relaxed and happy. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.